All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to a very special edition of Diligent Spaces on X. The establishment machine is losing its ever loving mind today. Man, watching the shills come out. Very upset about the news that the ballistics for the bullet for Charlie Kirk came back inconclusive. They are trying to wage this narrative war. Well, inconclusive doesn't mean it doesn't match. Well, actually, yeah, that's exactly what it means. It means that they were unable to match the bullet to Tyler Robinson's gun. All right. Now, this is a big deal because they don't have Tyler Robinson at the scene. They don't have a real confession. They try to tell you that they do, but they don't. They don't have the supposed confession note, right? They don't have anything directly tying Tyler Robinson to this crime at all. Not that we've seen, anyways. There hasn't been any evidence shown in discovery thus far or in the motions that suggests that he was there. I mean, there is nothing tying him to this crime that I've seen thus far, right? Other than what they're trying to tell you. So this is a massive blow because obviously there is a narrative war campaign being waged by the establishment regime media, the new media, the so-called new media, the shills, right? The Con Inc. shills, as well as the legacy media I've seen, right? They're working together now, if you haven't noticed. Do me a favor, if you're on the space, go to the bottom right corner, please repost. I have Good Logic on his way. He's an attorney, trial attorney in New York, and he's going to come give his perspective. I was having a little bit of a back and forth with him about this on the timeline, so I can't wait to hear. But I'm seeing all kinds of people going, if the bullet doesn't fit, you must acquit. My question is, right? The question is if Tyler Robinson did not kill Charlie Kirk, who did? That's the question. If Tyler Robinson, if you cannot link Tyler Robinson to this crime, and the defense labeled it as exculpatory evidence, if you don't know what that means it's vindicating. That means that it frees him. It proves he's innocent, right? That's to go on top of Joe Kent saying that there was data points leading to potential foreign involvement, a foreign nexus. This comes after that, right? So this case is getting weaker and weaker by the minute. And they are out there trying to push the narrative hard today. Hard. They are very worried about this. Very, very, very worried about this, as they should be. Australian Talks, can you co-host? How you doing, brother? No? Busy? What's up, beautiful? Go ahead.
So it's exculpatory, but it doesn't necessarily exonerate him. Being inconclusive doesn't mean...
Yeah, I didn't say that it exonerated him.
I thought you did.
That's not what I said.
Okay. I thought you did. Maybe I misheard or misunderstood.
I said the defense says that it is potentially exculpatory evidence. That's right. Verbatim what they said in their motion.
It is potentially exculpatory, correct. I thought maybe I missed.
Okay, do you have something else to add?
No, not right now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay.
What's going on here? I don't know what's up with that. Anyways, let me get down to it. On top of everything else, this sheriff who is clearly nervous, the sheriff, he is the Washington County Sheriff's deputy who arranged for Tyler Robinson to come in and turn himself in alongside a former Washington County or Utah County detective, right, who is retired. And the same day that the ballistics report comes to light, the sheriff deputy who supposedly brought Tyler Robinson in, even though all of the footage of Tyler Robinson being brought in has just vanished, just got deleted for some reason. We found out through GRAMAs, which is the Utah state level of the FOIA. All of that evidence is just, that video is just gone. The video of any of the body cam video or any of the squad car video or vehicle video or any of the potential station video, sheriff's office video, all that's gone for some reason. Just like all of the video at the hospital was gone. When they all they took Charlie there. The FBI came and seized all of that, as well as when the Patsy, the guy who falsely claimed that he was the one that shot Charlie, when he was taken into the hospital, that video was also scrubbed, right? So pretty much everything surrounding this arrest that day, anywhere else, has all been scrubbed by the FBI. Except for this guy. So this guy who quit yesterday, he just happened to resign. People are like, oh, he retired after 30 years. Well, when you retire, you don't abruptly just retire. It's a planned event, right? And that gives your successor opportunity to train, get accustomed to the job, gives your workforce time to prepare for your departure, right? You don't just retire and abruptly quit one day, right? So he resigned, which means he abruptly quit, and then he went into retirement because he had established enough years to go into retirement. He apparently had 30 years on the force, but all of the shills and the bot networks, and they are out there, are saying, he retired with 30 years of service. But he resigned. He didn't do a planned retirement. You plan a retirement. You don't just abruptly resign and have to find an interim sheriff to replace you because you're planning a retirement. That's retarded. Okay, so let's not be retarded. Let's use our critical thinking caps, right? He resigned the same day that the ballistics report became public, right? The same day. So I'm not saying that there's a correlation there, but it's just odd. It's an odd overlap of circumstances, right? So let's listen to what he said. This guy, okay, I have been doing spaces for 3 years. Am I a human lie detector? No. Do I have a pretty good feel for when someone's being clearly dishonest with me? Yes. When people are tripping over their words, when people are stuttering, when they are having trouble, when they have a raised heart, you can tell they have a raised heartbeat, when they're sweating profusely, when they are darting all over the place. These are indications of nervousness, right? And often deception, right? So if you can't remain cool, calm, and collected and speak from, recite information without having to struggle to get it out. Now, you could be a nervous public speaker. However, why would you pick a nervous public speaker to come out and do a press conference about Charlie Kirk's assassination or Charlie Kirk's alleged killer? That doesn't make any sense, right? So this guy, I think he was clearly lying. This is my pinned post. Good logic. Can you come up here? Bottom right corner, and please, if you're in the spaces, please repost the space. If you're over on YouTube, hit that like button, and we're going to listen to this clip real quick, and then we'll get into it. Are you there?
I think I'm hearing an echo.
Oh, I think I got the echo. You good now?
Yeah.
What's up, brother? I haven't seen you in a minute.
I'm good. You and I are falling into different camps. And it's almost like we can't be friends anymore. I'm like, does he still like me? Are we gonna
Why,
like
why
hang
can't
out?
we
Like, what's going on?
why can't we be friends anymore? Friends can't disagree?
I don't know. I just feel no. You see, here's the thing. Like, I feel as if there's a purposeful divide that's being created on this issue. I really only thought about this today because when it's, I have a few people have been like dogging me like on post after post about the Iran war. And what I found is when one of these guys like, look, dude, I agree with 75 to 80% of what you say. And I'm like, why are you then following me from post to post? Like, you have to convince me that you're right and I'm wrong on this issue. Why can't we just say, okay, this is when we disagree? But I feel as if the people who are, let's say, who were once pro Trump and turning against him, seem adamant that everyone turn against him. And I don't understand why that would be.
When have you ever seen me tell somebody they have to turn against Trump? Or
No,
when have I
so I want
ever
to be clear.
followed
I want
you?
to be clear. I'm not talking about you specifically. Okay? I'm not talking
Well,
about you
you said
specifically. I'm
me.
talking
You
about
just included me in that. What do you mean? You just
no. Well, I included you
led with.
because okay, I included you because I've been hearing it from people who
You're
are in this camp.
unfairly grouping me in with people who are doing things that I am not doing. That's what you're doing.
No, I'm not grouping you in. If I was grouping you in, I wouldn't to come here today, brother. Right? I mean, my
Okay.
point is, I don't think that has to be. I don't want there to be this whole fight amongst us. We the plebeian MAGA. I don't want to see that fight, but I do feel as you can't deny that there's like sort of like this push
A
that it's
rift?
like
A rift?
yeah, there's a rift there's a rift amongst the plebes of MAGA, which I consider both of us, even though I guess some people look at us as being influencer types, but even amongst people of our standing or lower, I feel as far as influence on social media, I feel as if there's a push for us to take a side and basically really hate on anyone who has not taken that side. And I think it's really unfortunate and stupid. And I think it's purposefully being done and orchestrated.
I mean, if I was seeing policy that I'd agreed with, I would cheer for that policy, right? So I am not. You lost me on a team last summer. I publicly declared this. I'm no longer on a team, right? I obviously still hold conservative fiscal values and conservative social values, but my allegiance lies to the truth and it lies to results, right? That's where my allegiance now lies. It used to lie with the team, right? It used to ally with the sacred cow, but since that sacred cow and the team betrayed my trust, right, and have failed to not only deliver on promises, but have gone against those promises, they have, I had to reconcile that. I can't reconcile, elite heads walking free and the public being lied to about our brightest being murdered in front of us, clearly, and like reconcile that with my core values, right? So my position has nothing to do with being for or against Trump or being for or against Republicans. My position has to do with either you deliver on what you say, what you promise to, or not. And every day, like the gaslighting, the telling us that we have to pick one or the other. We have to look the other way when corruption is rampant. We have to look the other way because our team is doing it. As we're into another war that we didn't want to be into, as spending just continues to increase, as gas goes up, as inflation goes up, as life gets harder for the Americans, for the betterment of a few, right? What we were trying to get away from. So yeah,
All right, so I'm gonna just respond to a few things that you say. The implication, and I don't think it's purposeful, but the implication is that you're seeking for truth, and those who support Trump are part of a team cult type of thing. You use the word cult, I know, but it's like basically that it's a matter of being a team. Go
I'm no
along
longer a cheerleader, is what I'm saying.
and what I'm saying, and I'm happy for that. I don't consider myself a cheerleader. I'm not a cheerleader. I'm just willing to say, okay, based on what I've seen, I'm willing to give certain grace when he's asking us to trust him. And I feel as if you have basically said since the Epstein files that you give zero grace to anything unless you can see it with your own two eyes. And that's really what I think the distinction is.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There is no more presumption of grace. Yep, that trust is gone. Yep. Now it is all about tangibles.
But that's what comes to, so now you come to a place where you're like, I'm seeking truth,
Once
I'm
the
seeking
Epstein
truth,
stuff
I'm
hit,
seeking
those
truth.
lists, the photos, the
And the
names,
question
it
first and
flipped a
foremost is where
switch.
you're seeking
People stopped
truth,
giving
and
anyone.
also the implication being that like, well, you're blinding yourself to the truth. And I'm not saying you're saying this about me, maybe you were, maybe you weren't, but about me personally. But you're basically implying, well, you're blinding yourself to the truth because you're a team player and you just go rah rah Trump and you're not really opening your eyes to the
I'm
truth.
not saying that about. I'm not speaking for anybody
That's
else.
the implication. We're talking about the different. I feel as if you and I are standing on different sides of rift here.
I have become a pure skeptic.
Hey, I hear you.
Right?
Feels like
You
I'm accusing
have
you.
to. Here's where I am now. Let me clearly state my position. My allegiance is to the evidence-based truth, right? So that means that if Trump were to deliver on ending the Iran war, I would say, hell yeah, wow, you got us out of there without doing a 20-year war. I would gratefully acknowledge that, right? Because that is an evidence-based policy. I am not going to sit here and be like, oh, well, our team has to win and yada, 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 when we didn't want to be there in the first place. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm not.
Let's start with
that part's
this.
gone.
Okay. And I think that's a logical.
Totally fair. That's actually refreshing.
But my
Evidence
question
over
is,
ego.
I'll ask
If
you
Trump
for
pulls
example.
off something real,
He went into Iran with the bunker busters last summer. Got out in and out. Everyone was saying it's going to start World War III. Everyone, or a lot of the larger, rapidly growing, because it's a popular thing to say, influencers, and I'm not talking about you specifically, but they were all like, "Here comes World War III, and we're coming to World War III, and then here it comes, and we're gonna get." He said no new wars, and we're about to have World War III. Well, that didn't happen, obviously, thank God. And a lot of people didn't, and I didn't think that was going to happen for even a second. But the people who said that are coming back around saying that, okay, here we are, we're going to get involved in a 20-year war, which I don't want to see that. My extension of support for Trump was basically like, okay, look, he killed Khamenei on day one. You're telling us he needs to have a brief incursion here. It's the first time he's ever come out and said, unfortunately, I think there's a possibility some American soldiers may die. I expect to be there for 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm like, look, this guy has delivered on one foreign policy after another, and he has access to intel that you, me, and no one else ever will or should have access to. And if this is what he's saying is going to help long-term make America safer, in that case, given his level of success combined with his prudence in protecting American lives, I'm willing to give him grace in this area. Now you're telling me that you're a skeptic, and I understand your skepticism, and properly so, because the way they handled the Epstein files was a complete debacle. I mean, that was just a disgrace, humiliation for the Trump administration, and front and center Pam Bondi, but not far behind Cash Patel and Dan Bongino. So what I'm saying is, I understand your skepticism there. What I'm saying is specifically with respect to the Iran war and that whole. And I don't, they call it.
But we're talking about a
pattern.
We're talking about a pattern of policy that is inconsistent than what we were promised, right? We're not talking about just the Epstein files. We're not talking about just the Iran war, right? There's been a consistent pattern of policies that is against what I voted for, right? That directly conflicts with Agenda 2024, right? And so I am now applying that skepticism broadly. I apply the same skepticism to the Democrats right now. When I see them doing dumb shit, I call it out, right? But unfortunately, the only people who are in power right now, as far as federally, are the Republicans. So they hold all the cards. They hold the levers of power. They're accountable. They are to be accountable. And if their own team, right, is not willing to hold them accountable, somebody has to, right? So that's where I'm at. I want results. If you see me being skeptic or critical, it's because I am trying to achieve the desired outcome, right? The desired result. And you don't do that by cheering on as incompetence, failure, and corruption runs rampant, right? That's not how you achieve the desired result. You have to be the stick in the mud and make sure that they deliver on what's promised. So that's where I'm at today. And Charlie Kirk's a great example of that, right? Here we are 6 months later, and if you saw the motion, I don't know if you read the motion today, but they have to reschedule, or the motion is for a continuance of discovery, okay, because the ATF and the FBI has not come back with the ballistics all the way through. They don't have the lead comparisons. They don't have DNA all the way through. There is a bunch of forensic evidence the federal government's still sitting on, and we are 6-7 months in. What are we talking about here? The most advanced country in the world can't do fingerprints or lead comparisons in less than 6 months in the most high-profile case in the country? Something's not right here, right? So there's too many inconsistencies with this case.
Well, I do think that with respect to prosecutors, that as a general rule, they tend to push the rules in ways that deprive defendants of an opportunity to properly defend themselves. So I'm down with you with respect to that. You want to call that on Trump? All right. I mean, I just feel as if with respect to this bullet thing, I think this bullet thing
of the FBI and ATF.
No, I grant you that at the end of the day, the buck stops here. And Truman said it first, and it's true for every president. And the buck ultimately stops with Trump. I'm simply saying, I mean, you titled this Charlie Kirk bullet doesn't match Tyler Robinson's gun. And I think that's like a much weaker point than the DNA failure to turn over the DNA. And everyone's leading with that because it makes it sound as if, oh my God, we got the wrong guy.
Because ballistics is one of the most surefire ways to tie a bullet to a shooter. Right?
No pun intended.
But what it says is that what the report says is that it's inconclusive. It doesn't exclude it and say this could not be the same bullet. It's just saying it doesn't conclusively tie it.
It literally says verbatim, could not be matched.
That's the interpretation that the defense counsel is putting in their motion. When they say could not be matched, well, no, I want to be clear because you need to understand this is lawyering what you're reading, and you're not actually parsing how they're framing it because they're very careful in how they're wording it. Because when they say could not be matched means we don't have 100% positive match. That doesn't mean it's been eliminated as potentially being the right gun. It simply means that we cannot rely on ballistics to say this bullet came from that gun. So that's why you're reading it the way the defense counsel wants you to read it, which is, this bullet could never fit in the gun. It's basically a 55 caliber and a 30. It's like
Jack Posobiec has been out here telling everybody that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk on repeat for 6 months. And so has TPUSA with all of their collective influence and reach. You mean that there's a little bit of counterweight for objectivity added to the narrative?
No, when you're saying
God forbid that happen.
No, dude. What I'm saying is this. You're basically reading what defense counsel's putting in here as if it's gospel.
Diving into the Iran
as if like this is
strikes
even if you read it as gospel, it still doesn't mean it wasn't the bullet that came firing from that gun.
Digging into this, let me grab the latest on that motion.
You're right. No, you're wrong. You're mistaken because basically the failure for the bullet to be able to prove it doesn't mean that they don't have 400 other forms of evidence to prove that it was him. So the bullet can't prove it. But everyone's turning as if the bullet excludes him, excludes that gun from being the weapon. And what I'm saying is that's a completely backward, illogical take. You're saying you're rooting your position on here in truth. That's 100% illogical position to
Well,
take.
if I may,
I mean, you're stating my position for me, right? My position is this: is that the ATF could not match the bullet to the gun, to Tyler's gun. That's my position. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that position?
The implication is that the implication that is clearly trying to be drawn is that this is not the murder weapon. That's essentially
Good logic.
My God,
Good
man.
logic. They've been pushing this whole his fingerprints on the gun thing so hard from minute one. So they've set themselves up for this. You want to say it's good lawyering, or it's also bad lawyering on the side of the prosecution, because they've based an entire case about this being a slam dunk. We got all the fingerprints on this gun. Well, Lottie freaking da, who cares about the fingerprints on a gun that most likely was not used? Now, if they had the match, then yes, pure slam dunk, no doubt. Yep, the bullet matches the gun, the fragments, it's there. We got it. We got fingerprints. That's it. Open and shut. But now that it doesn't, and you pushed it that hard, you didn't even pursue other leads. You said, we got our guy. The FBI said, Utah's got it. They've got it. We're going to relinquish everything to them. They're cooked. They're cooked.
Not only that, guys, but from day one, Pam Bondi stated, which already practically taints a trial, we've got our guy and we're going for the death penalty. That's before anything was, any of the discovery, the defense even had a chance to mount a case. They were saying from the day one, we got him and we're going to seek the death penalty from Bondi's lips. Okay. And another thing is that the FBI is so freaked out about this. Apparently, they are going to redo their whole forensics on this. Like, okay, we didn't get it right the first time. Gee, we better find a bullet that matches this gun. There were ballistic experts that showed up. Diligent showed a couple of the tapes. We've had them all over the place, from military guys saying there is no way in hell this gun, with any bullet that fits this gun, it did what it did to Charlie Kirk. No way in hell. They were shooting up. Yeah.
Okay.
They were shooting up.
I've been sitting here quiet.
I'm sorry.
I'm sitting here quietly while I have three of you all basically,
Well, they're all just
jumping
kinda,
up and down.
And
that's fine. That's fine. If you want, I didn't mean to cut her off, but
Got it.
what I'm
Let's
saying is
unpack
there's
this
just like
mess.
6 different points you're bringing up here, which are not proving what you all so excitedly think it proves. None of this, literally, not the slightest.
But good logic, we don't need to prove anything. The onus of proof is on the prosecution.
You're correct in that, but if you're sitting here saying that this case is cooked, in that case, which is what you're saying.
There are so many massive gaping holes in this case. So many.
Okay. All right. Look, I don't know.
Okay, can you give me?
What I'm saying to you is this. What I'm saying to you is this.
What smoking gun is there really with this case? Can you just give me one example?
No confession.
There's no confession.
It's supposed. I read. I haven't seen his confession. But I read that.
Okay,
that he
so then
supposedly
you know
confessed.
that. So he did not confess. He has not cooperated. He has not cooperated with. He has not cooperated with law enforcement at all, right? The prosecution said this at the beginning in September. He has not cooperated, or the prosecution gave that in his public statements. He has not cooperated with it all. What they're saying is a confession, and you're reading secondhand reporting from Con Inc., right? Like you just said yourself, supposedly, and you're citing it as if it's fact. There is no confession. That's what I'm saying.
So
what example do you have of a smoking gun? There's not one. There isn't one. He didn't confess. They're talking about him talking to his parents, supposedly, allegedly, which has not been confirmed, saying that he was involved but not shooting, right? That led him to talk to the preacher talked to the retired police officer, the retired police officer talked to the guy who quit yesterday, who arranged for them all to come in together, being driven by the former detective, but he never confessed. You don't have any smoking gun in this case, bro. And every day, it looks like there's less and less of a solid case in circumstantial evidence.
They literally have the smoking gun. This is what the origin of the term smoking gun is, the evidence that they have.
But
They,
there's no
they do not
independent
literally have a
reason,
smoking gun.
bro.
Yes,
And
indeed.
what
They
you're all
don't
trying to
have the
say,
smoking
and what you're
gun.
all trying to say,
Everybody,
I'll let
don't
you
jump.
answer.
Hold on. Don't. Sorry,
Gotcha.
I'm muting
Digging
that.
into
Good logic. Don't dogpile him. Um, the premise that we started discussing this was that the ballistics can't be positively ID'd to the gun. We don't know that's the gun. You can't prove that it's the gun because the
Okay, and
bullets
when
quote
right,
right.
so fine. So I guess his prints on that gun happened to get there, and his DNA on that gun happened to get there.
There are over 5 prints on that gun, or 7 sets of prints on that gun, and there are over 5 sets of trace DNA, 5 or more trace DNA. There is
And that's the
nothing
most fascinating
conclusive.
part. That is the
That
most fascinating part of the defense. I'm not I'll
Yeah,
concede to you.
this case
That
is
is the most part.
messy. Let's
That to
dig
me
into
is
the
way
facts.
more interesting than the bullets. When you're talking about a soft tip bullet, and matching it to the gun that fired
Yeah,
it is not something that we
why
have
not?
in
Because if that
extensive to get
gun
it
did
done.
not fire the round that killed
yeah,
Charlie
exactly.
Kirk,
Match.
right?
Well, I
Then another
understand that.
one
Yeah, no, look,
potentially
if
did, which means that there's more to be seen
100%,
here.
100%. If
No,
the
Charlie
defense
Kirk's
And
alive.
good
is
logic, good logic. Don't forget all the anomalies around the crime scene. I mean, that hasn't even been discussed.
Can I
But
jump in on this, Miss
I mean,
Lou?
it's crazy. But basically, think about O.J. Simpson's glove. That's what we're looking at here. O.J. Simpson's glove.
Can I jump in real quick? So
Yeah,
I understand that there's a ballistics issue here, and I'm not. I just don't understand, just from a pure spectative standpoint here. I think a lot of people are speaking in absolutes and making a lot of conclusions without this case even running its course. Um, Defenses are always going to have, some interesting angle, as good logic just conceded. I concede that too. It's an interesting point. It doesn't make the case. And on top of that, I do want to put this out there. You, you guys are out there. The same principle here of what you're looking at is being applied at Luigi Mangione, who will probably walk with a non-guilty verdict from a jury in New York City. But I just want to remind you guys, um, let's not murky the waters. We're fighting amongst each other, calling each other names, going after one another,
I'm not
dogpiling
calling
on.
anybody
No,
names.
not you. I'm not
Yeah, what are you
talking to
talking
you. No,
about?
no, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you, Diligent. I'm just saying dogpiling on one person on the stage when he's trying to make a. I just
Nobody's getting dogpiled on.
okay.
Yeah, I
So
literally muted
so now
everybody so
I'm
they wouldn't
so now I'm
dogpile.
getting gaslit. All right, cool.
I mean,
Okay, well,
I muted the space so that that didn't occur,
No,
right?
afterwards, after the fact, when it
but
started.
Diligent. What's interesting here is the people that come into your spaces, and this was true of the Epstein thing. It's very weird because don't we just want to find the bad guy? Everybody, when people come in and they're like, and it's always, by the way, the pro-Israel crowd, like
Can we
10,000
not
out of,
make it about
hold,
Israel? Like,
okay,
come
but I'm
on.
just saying that 10,000 out of 10,000, always the case. Okay. And it's really weird because I don't go into if people are doing investigative journalism in any direction, I don't go in and say, why are you talking about this? And this idea that you're so desperate and you're going, oh, please, it's got to be Tyler Robinson. I mean, here you are. And of course, it's just nonstop. You stick with the same point of view, which is, hey, there's holes in the story. Let's not jump to conclusions. The state is clearly lying and obfuscating and erasing things and behaving more like a criminal class. And we've seen it over and over again. And remember, this is the same administration that said that they were going to go after Epstein and the Epstein files, and all of a sudden started literally protecting the pedophilia class. Like that's incontrovertibly, these are all facts. And Jackie Kennedy, when her husband was killed, she didn't go, he's guilty, get him. That's it. She said, I don't believe that one little commie did it alone. Like, she may not have been right about that, by the way, but at least she held her mind open to, hey, look, whoever did this, I want this. But this is weird, right? Because we have people now coming
do you
in.
really think
Hold on, hold
that
on, hold
Jackie
on, hold on,
Onassis?
hold on, hold on. We have people coming in here now where you're just following the facts. And by the way, I agree with you. We don't really know what they are. And they're saying, no, 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 no. Wait, you shouldn't do, and you shouldn't think about this anymore. And why are you saying this? And where does this lead? Someone wants,
I've never
hold
said
on.
that once. No,
Someone
no,
wants
no,
to,
no, no,
hold
no,
on,
no, no,
He's
hold
no.
on,
making a
I
hold
never
general
on,
said that
analysis.
once.
hold
No,
on,
He's making
hold
a
on,
no.
general
hold
Now
analysis.
on,
you're
Good
talking about
hold
logic.
on,
me.
Hold on.
And that's a
He's
Hold
making
ridiculous
on.
statement.
Hold on. Hold on. Hold
good
on.
logic. Hold on, you
Hold on.
guys. Hold on, David.
Yeah.
Hold on. He's
You
making a
know.
generalization the same way that you were, and I was
Right.
like, that doesn't include me. So you're allowed to clarify. Good
Sure.
logic doesn't include himself in what you're saying. I think that's what he's trying to get at here.
Absolutely.
Go ahead,
Right.
David. If you can like give it like 20 more seconds though.
Okay. So anybody that wants to obviate just the basic process of reasoning and turn it on his head as though he's guilty until he's proven innocent, which of course is ridiculous, then they're going to say, where does this lead? Right? But people that are rational and especially empirically rational just say, let's look at the facts. You're making this case that you haven't proven yet, and you have giant holes in your case, and there's avenues that you're willfully denying that exist that clearly to the rest of us we see should be investigated. Well, this is all good citizen journalism, and you should let it play out. You shouldn't make the assumption that, oh, he's guilty, and why are you talking about it? This is just, it's very suspect, I think, when people come in and carry this line of thinking instead of letting the process and being incredulous, being like doubtful about the narrative that's given to them. My goodness, after COVID and everything else, you should at least be doubtful about what's being told to you.
Hey, you let me know when you find someone who's being incredulous about this conversation being held. Okay, when you do
Good
that,
logic.
you identify them.
Do
So
you lean
the
towards
point that I'm
Tyler?
getting, what?
Do you not have a? I mean, I think he raises a good point. Do you have
Which
a
is what?
bias? Do you have a
No,
bias
I'm going to tell you what I'm
towards?
saying.
Do you have a bias
Once,
towards Tyler Robinson being guilty? Yes, I mean it's. Do
no,
you?
no. If he walks, it does nothing to me. I don't care. What I'm saying is, when I hear arguments that are not
Hang on.
logical
Digging
arguments,
into this
then I
Charlie Kirk
say,
thing real
what the
quick.
hell is going on? And I feel as if the train over here, which
Yeah.
is
Charlie
running
Kirk
off
was
the
killed,
tracks at 90 miles an
assassinated
hour.
on September
And
10th,
that's what I think is happening,
2025,
for example,
at
with
that
respect to
Utah
this
Valley
bullet
rally.
thing. The DNA stuff I say is way more interesting. But what I'm saying is the assumption becomes this entire thing was thrown together. They even call it, FED slop. And that's the name of the space. So, there's an
Yeah,
assumption that was
it's
thrown
sloppy,
together.
bro.
And you're
When it
saying,
has
well,
massive holes in it, it's like fucking Swiss cheese. It's
but
sloppy.
you're saying it has holes when you don't know what evidence they have. I don't know what evidence they have. So let's talk about what evidence we do know
I
about and
know
what it
that I
shows
know
or
that
does not show.
I know that an SD card that was the closest high definition video footage of Charlie Kirk being assassinated was allowed to walk off the crime scene. I know that the feds never confiscated Charlie Kirk's phone to see if he was in contact with his potential killer before he died. I know that there are numerous examples of chain of evidence discrepancies with this case, narrative contradicting statements made by Kash Patel, the so-called Patsy, what's his name, the bald guy. God, I'm drawing a blank here. George Zinn, right? There are so many discrepancies with this case. A
Right?
limited scope with the footage of Tyler Robinson being brought in and arrested, being erased by the police department, right? Like, why would you get rid of
And
that in a
I
capital
came
murder
here.
trial? Like, there are so
I
many
can't.
examples of holes in this case that I can recite them to you verbatim off the top of my head.
Okay. And you labeled this Charlie Kirk bullet does
Got it.
not match
Let's
Tyler
dig into
Robinson
those
gun
holes
Fed
real
slot
quick.
destroyed. So let's focus on this bullet not matching the gun.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
what I came in
The
here.
DNA
That's
on
what I
that towel
assumed
wrapped
we were
around the
going to be
Okay,
rifle.
so
discussing here. You want to talk about George Zinn or other SD cards and stuff like that? We can
I
talk
mean,
about that too.
we
But
were having a
but
general.
the point that I'm getting at, is that when you're taking this defense counsel brief, where they're basically saying that the findings were inconclusive. So I think that you're missing a lot of context as to what that means in this industry of matching a bullet to a gun. I actually shared with you a link to an article from scientificamerican.com, which breaks down the firearms forensics for identifying a bullet. And I shared with you in private chat. If you want to put it up, you can put it up with people. And it basically describes how there are three different classifications that come to a bullet when they're trying to match it to a particular gun. It can either be deemed, it can have an identification, meaning that it definitely came from this gun. You could have an elimination, meaning it definitely did not come from this gun. And what you all too often have is inconclusive, which means we just don't know. It might have come from this gun. It might have come from a different gun. And that's what we have here. Now, in a situation where you have an elimination, I would concur with you that this case is effed. This case is really screwed because Pam Bondi went out there and made her statements, and they tied everything to this gun. In linking themselves to this gun, if the bullet that is shown as being eliminated as coming from that gun, excuse me, in that case, this case is fried and they're really screwed. But when you're talking about a situation where it's inconclusive, what that actually means is that the government will not be able to use ballistics in order to positively identify that this bullet was fired from this gun. Does that mean that their case is done? Not at all. What it means is they need to rely on other evidence. Now, you're sitting here and you can come to me and point to me to a lot of different evidence that you think would help the defense to make us believe that Tyler Robinson didn't kill him. You may be right. I don't know. What I'm saying is that this bullet though is not the coming from a gun which the feds are claiming is the smoking gun. So this bullet failure to identify it as coming specifically from this gun is not
okay, right. You said that twice. Okay. Well, here's the point. Look, first of all, you're right. You're right. If the defense and the prosecution, if they can only say that we don't know that that bullet, we cannot identify that bullet came from that gun. That is a big deal, because then it's a big deal in this case, because then you rely on all the other evidence. And what evidence is that? You see, this is the problem. There are so many holes, no pun intended, in the actual story itself. They're going to have to rely on that evidence. And then don't forget, when Joe Kent comes out and says they weren't allowing us to go down this other investigative avenue, if you don't think the defense is going to use that, I mean, they're going to use that. Keep in mind, OJ did get off, right? I mean, you do have to.
If the bullet doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Right. If the bullet doesn't fit. But look, I don't necessarily go that far, all joking aside. It's just that the whole presumption, the jury, remember, you have to convince the whole jury. You know, the reason why that we have a jury system is because political states and kings and everything that existed when they were created will lie to you. And they have a preponderative amount of power and resources to execute that lie. So what do we have on our side? Doubt. And this whole concept of reasonable doubt, with the preponderance of a state that has lied to us, with everything that we've gone through with Epstein, where they're clearly lying and covering up for the worst people in the world. I'm sorry, but this idea that if you're going to make an omelet, you have to let a few pedophiles go. No one believes that. Okay, no one believes that. The whole thing.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that either.
Hold on. Yeah, I know you don't, my friend. I'm not imputing that on you.
I have a real quick. I just want to jump in.
Sure.
Good logic. Would you agree that if they cannot positively link the bullet to the gun, that there's a very good chance, or at least a substantial chance, that might not be the murder weapon? I mean, logically.
No, of course, yeah, and it definitely helps the defense significantly, in the sense that not that it reasonable doubt, rather than showing that he did not do it. See what I'm saying? So, and there's a big distinction there, and David is correct that we assume innocence unless proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So it makes their case a lot tougher, and I agree. I also concur with the fact that all these other factors are likely to be brought up by defense, and certainly could create reasonable doubt. I don't doubt that at all. It's definitely possible. My question is, I am curious about one thing he said in his last statement, which is the whole Joe Kent angle, which I'm a little confused by. Now, I understand Joe, and this is, I just want to ask this question to David or you, I guess.
Okay, sure. Yeah, because I was going to bring it up. We're about to talk about the same thing.
All right, so great. So my question is this: do you think
foreign involvement in the gun and the bullet can't be matched to the gun? Well, in that context, that's quite a big deal, because a foreign gun could have been used. But
the question I was going to ask is this: is counterterrorism? And I don't know the answer to this. I'm not trying to have an aha moment for you.
No, it's cool.
To me, I'm asking a good faith question here. Is counterterrorism normally work in doing investigation into events that have happened, I would assume that counterterrorism, because someone just came to off the street 6 months ago,
Well, that's a great
before,
question.
and said, what does
Let me take a
counterterrorism
swing
do?
at it
I would
first,
say,
David.
I would think that their entire mission is to stop terrorism from happening in the future, and that maybe if there was an investigative report, that would be inform them for events toward the future, but not that they would be trying to make that assessment themselves on
Well,
events that have happened in the past.
they're not isolated from each other. So if there is a terrorist act committed on U.S. soil, and or a potential terrorist act committed on U.S. soil, and you don't catch said potential terrorists, well, then the odds are that those potential terrorists are going to commit another act in the future,
I would
right?
answer
Right,
So
no.
and that's why I'm saying after the FBI, which is the agency I would assume would be conducting this investigation, that after they finish their conclusion as to whether or not there was terrorist activity, if in fact they found there was terrorist activity, I would think it's incumbent upon them to share it with counterterrorism in order for them to plan for the future. But the actual investigation that Joe Kent is implying, we counterterrorism was thrown off the investigation. I was like, I never thought for a second can you be involved in that unless an investigation was conducted by a different Fed agency and they conclude there was terrorism, in which case 100% you definitely should know about
well,
it,
the
so you
agencies
can
all
help
work
protect
It
your
would be
together,
the
future.
right?
CIA. It would be the
They pull
CIA.
they
Right,
pull
CIA, not
those.
FBI. You're right, CIA, correct.
Hold on. There's all kinds of federal agencies on the investigative side that often work together. As a matter of fact, Trump signed an EO in March that removed all of the safeguards and the compartmentalization data sharing barriers from those agencies, right? So actually, Trump himself implemented a policy that would make it easier for these agencies to work as one single unit, which I was worried about because of centralization of power. But besides that, right, there's actually a standing EO right now, signed by Trump, written by Trump, signed by Trump, that has these different interdepartmental agencies work together on these kinds of tasks, right? So one hand feeds the other.
Right. No, I agree with you. But I mean, and look, I'll openly admit that my knowledge about this comes as much from TV and media as it does from anywhere else. So if someone knows firsthand, they can correct me. I would just assume that, a blood spatter analyst, for example, and now his analysis is what happened here that led to a splatter resulting like this. I would not think there's someone like that in counterterrorism.
Well, let me address the
And
Joe
that,
Kent
to
question.
clarify that.
Listen, let me address the
I
Joe
only
Kent
have a
question.
moment, Diligent, if I
So one
could.
second, one second. So with the Joe Kent question,
You're not. You'll go next, Doc.
okay, with the Joe Kent question, Joe Kent, it's not a matter of his official duty. It's a matter of the fact that he held that position. If you're the defense, so we're thinking right now in terms of how to prove that, how the prosecution is going to prove their case and what the defense is going to use. When you put in the consciousness, if there's a dearth of evidence, and now we're talking about waning evidence, we're saying that the bullet don't fit, might have to acquit. Well, then all of a sudden, if the defense has, and every defense attorney that's great, they will conjure counter narratives out of nothing. This isn't really nothing, right? We know that the political state has been lying through their lying lie holes for us for at least for the last 5 or 6 years, virulently, and that's why nobody trusts them. That's why everybody believes almost everything is a false flag. And then all of a sudden, imagine you're the defense now. You only need one of those people. That's going to take 12 jurymen to agree that your guy is guilty. That counter narrative, when Joe Kent put that out there, wrong or right, or whether you like it or whether you think, well, gosh, they should have done this and the CIA should have done this, the defense could and should be using that. So don't you agree, my friend, that with this new news about the bullet not matching or not being able to provably be matched, and then all of a sudden with what Joe Kent said, there's a lot there given the dearth of evidence they have in every other direction and
It
all of the
doesn't,
stuff that they destroyed.
David, it doesn't matter. And here's what I want to say. It doesn't matter because you guys are focused on the wrong half of this case. This isn't a bonus for the defense. It is. But the way to look at this is it robs the offense and the prosecution of their main weapon. That's gone now. And the prosecution has to prove the case to a reasonable doubt before any effort has to be made to defend against the accusation and the proof offered by the state. In this circumstance, based on my belief and based on my spending a lot of time in diligent spaces, I don't believe Tyler Robinson had anything whatsoever to do with Charlie Kirk's death. And what the prosecution in the state, corruptly hiding the real murderer, has delayed this case, has gotten the judge and the courts to keep everyone silent about it with a gag order. The media is 24/7. Even the conservative media, particularly the conservative media, is trying to convince us to condemn a man accused, but without any offer of proof. And where investigative journalists like that are on the stage and diligent have demonstrated that there are serious, reasonable questions about how Kirk was exactly killed. I don't see
I
how
just want to.
I don't see how this can be prosecuted.
I want to give you all a heads up. I told Diligent before I came here, I only had a half hour. I can go like another 10 minutes or so, but then I have family stuff I need to take care of. I don't want any of you to think I'm ducking out of here because, I couldn't, take the heat or something like that.
Sure, good logic, sure. I'm kidding.
I'm not attacking.
I am doing YouTube
to be
live
clear, I
streams
wasn't
too.
finished. Good
I'm
logic.
sorry. Go ahead, Doc.
But I was just gonna say I am doing YouTube live streams now too, so we can do a debate or something on YouTube if you want one of these days.
So
In
to be
studio.
clear, I wasn't attacking anything that Good Logic or anyone else in the space had said. I came up after seeing the title of the space and the tone and the tenor of the conversation being about Joe Kent and it's simply the reaction, the effect of this new lack of evidence on the defense. We have to again focus on the fact that the state doesn't have a case to bring right now.
So do you think that they will not proceed with the case? Is that what you
No,
think?
I think they will. They may have a corrupt judge. They may have a bought jury. We don't know how far the corruption will extend to convict this guy and hide the real killers. I think they thought that they could use Erica Kirk and TV USA to bury this. And all that's happened there is that she's completely discredited herself. She's encouraged the investigative journalism and have disclosed some very questionable facts about her. She's not to be believed, and neither is the
I have
TV USA.
questions.
So,
To quote Candace Owens, I have questions. So I'm just gonna throw this out here. First and foremost, I don't understand how it is that there's an assumption as far as dearth of evidence that's been taken as a given in this space. I don't know why you assume that we would know all the evidence that's out there. That's something that they would basically be, if they were.
So why is Erica Kirk?
Someone like Doc would come out there.
No, Good Logic. Why is Erica Kirk out there saying that we should not be looking at any other investigation?
Because Erica Kirk is tired.
She's tired. She's pathetic. She's not tired.
What I'm
And
saying
so
is,
isn't any defense of her.
Doc, what I'm saying is, ever since that bullet was fired, she has. I'm not saying. Look, for all I know, she's Satan incarnate.
She dressed up in sparkles and
not,
had a fucking concert as memorial.
I don't.
Jesus
I'm not
Christ.
here.
All right, I gotta go.
I'm not here. I'm not here.
Don't go, Doc.
Well, that's good.
You know how
So
it is.
what I'm saying is, I don't know. Maybe she's Satan incarnate. What I'm saying, I do know that we've never seen Jackie Kennedy or any widow be as harassed as she's been over the
Jackie Kennedy had humility. For goodness sakes, Jackie Kennedy had humility.
Okay, and look, the point I'm getting at is
Jackie Kennedy actually didn't become coronated afterwards. Do you understand? She had humility. She mourned for a long time. She couldn't talk to anybody. She didn't have the best time in her life. I've lost someone dear to me. You don't giggle within a week. You don't giggle. You do not have the giggle in you. You don't have the laughter. I'm sorry. Look, we won't even go down this road. Doc is being really based here because what he's basically saying is, why are all the people that are already trying, convicting, saying he's guilty, and then already saying we're going to give him the death penalty? Does that sound like justice to you? This has never ever heard. That's a lynching. That's a lynching.
That sounds like every prosecutor I've ever heard.
No. This is the attorney general. This isn't the prosecutor.
They all say we got the guy.
That was the attorney general. Do you understand the words?
The attorney general said firing squad.
Yeah.
And like I said, look, I'm the last person who's ever going to try defending Pam Bondi because I think she's a walking embarrassment. Okay, so I'm not going to sit here trying to defend Pam Bondi and things that she said. She sucks.
Okay.
She's terrible. It
Let
was a
me then let
terrible
me ask you
appointment.
this. Let me ask you this in reverse. Okay. So if Tyler Robinson is proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, well, I'm going to accept that verdict, obviously, right? I mean, I'm with diligent. Just go where the evidence is. Now, here's my question: if we determine beyond a reasonable doubt that Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk, are you going to accept it?
Of course.
Good. Good. And we should look at both those avenues, right? If there's anything to investigate there, we should investigate all of that. We should leave no stone
For the record,
unturned.
I lean more towards that it was our own government that was likely most involved. Maybe on behalf or in conjunction with foreign interests. But
Do you think the CIA and the Mossad are different entities, or do you think it's the intelligence industrial complex along with MI6?
I think it's a distinction without a difference.
Well, okay, then I guess we agree. It's the intelligence. If there's no difference, then it's the intelligence industrial complex.
Except for it has to be allowed to happen by the stewards. The number one function of any government is to protect the safety of its citizens. Period. That's the number one function of any government. So if it occurred here in conjunction with Mossad or any other Israel or any other foreign country, China, example, Iran, whatever, right? It would have to be it is a compromise, or it was allowed to happen by the stewards of safety in our country, which is the government, the military, the intelligence agencies, FBI, CIA, etc. Right? So to me, I don't, it doesn't matter if it was Mossad or the United States. It's still the United States at some level has to allow that to occur.
Well,
Right?
that's true. If it was Mossad, we still would have allowed it to occur. And if we were being controlled by that country, you're right, because really much worse things could happen. For instance, that country could drag us into a massive war that destroys our economy. So good point.
David, do you guys know how many different countries and people were blamed, including the state of Texas, for JFK's death? And we still don't have the
Yeah, it was
real
Israel.
information. So I just want to say, we want the truth. Anybody in diligent space have been listening to Epstein, listening to Kirk, listening to all these things, are going after the truth. If it means following anomalies, everything, good logic, you're absolutely correct. That is what we want. If it ends up being Israel, then it's Israel. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We still haven't been told about Butler, except that we were told that Iran Iran was behind that assassination. At this point, we don't know what to believe, because our truth has been kicked in the teeth, our trust has been kicked in the teeth so many times by this government. And that is the real problem here. That's why we keep asking questions, because until we get the right answers, meaning the true answers to those questions, we're going to keep asking. Diligent, thank you for the mic.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say that I don't think it's the last 5 years of governance. I think it's the last century of governance. I think ever since the FBI has been created, I think that this is what we've been seeing happening here. People want to focus on the last 5 years. I don't think so. No, I think that we're talking about deep levels of corruption in our governance, and extricating it seems like something that would take another 25 years to actually properly extricate it, with a lot of good fortune or elections and things of that nature. I don't think that presenting one country as a particular boogeyman, like David seems to be saying, where
it's Israel for sure.
Good logic.
Yeah, of
From
course.
an abstract level,
of course.
Good logic. From an abstract level, this doesn't kind of have earmarks of a military operation to you.
A military operation?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what earmarks. It could be. I don't know. What I'm saying is,
I would say intelligence operation.
Point I'll make. This is
intelligence operation.
But what I'm saying is, folks like David just immediately just run to it being Israel or Mossad.
No, evidence runs there. I just follow it.
No, you're not following the evidence, because you every boogeyman you're blaming on Israel. You don't want to hear me respond and point out how ridiculous that comment that position is. I can. For sure. Joe Kent came out and said that basically, how we know there's government involvement here, because people were talking about it on September 3rd. That's what he said. And you know why Israel was what everyone would think, well, okay, he would have said a year ago, you would have been like, why the hell would Israel ever think of harming the best influencer from their perspective? as far as him being, supportive of an alliance with Israel. Why on earth would they ever in a million years want to see him killed? And then
Oh, I
the
can answer
evidence
that
we have for
easily.
that
Shall I
is,
answer that
yeah,
question?
no, the evidence for that we get is
No,
that
hold on. You just
here's
asked a
your
question. Why
here's your
would we
Well,
want
WhatsApp
to?
let, let,
Why
here's
would
your
they want to
WhatsApp
see
let him
Charlie
let him
Kirk
exchange.
land.
go?
Dave,
I'm
Dave,
telling you what's
Let
been
him land his plane,
presented,
and then
David.
I'll let you respond, David. Go ahead, David. Good luck.
Yeah. What I'm saying is we hear, oh, because there's this chatter on WhatsApp where he's saying I'm sick of the Israel lobby and they're not going to control me and all that other stuff. Here's the problem that you have with this. The problem you have with that is chronologically that doesn't even make any sense. We're saying that as far as tying Israel in, because the point to knowing that a government was involved happens on September 3rd. They're learning of Charlie Kirk coming out and saying, "Hey, I'm sick of these pro-Israel lobbyists," happens 5 days later on September 8th. So how on earth did they go back in time, unless you think that Jews and Mossad have some time machine? How are they going back in time to basically start this whole operation when they had no motivation to kill him? Quite the contrary, they want to keep him protected. And all of a sudden, snap on September 8th, when they learn that he hates them, they have a plan that's already been going in effect for the last 5 days. Walk me through how that all makes sense, because people seem to ignore
Happy to do it.
this
Okay.
chronological timeline. Walk
All
us
right. Well, let
through
me
it.
answer. Good. So Charlie Kirk was a proponent of Israel, and he was the second most important person in America to Israel, behind Donald Trump. And the reason why is because everybody else was being dispossessed of the idea that Israel's anything but our enemy, anything but pure evil. They watched a genocide happen in 4D, and Israel said, no, 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 that's not a genocide. Okay, so we all realized, oh my gosh, this country's controlling us, especially when they're buying all our politicians and making them make humiliation rituals over there in Israel. And then Charlie Kirk comes out and says three things that are heretical to the Israelis. One of them is Epstein worked with Mossad. You cannot say that. You cannot say, which is what he's saying, that the Israeli government was running a pedophile, child molesting blackmail operation in order to extort American politicians into helping them bomb other children whose lives they were destroying in Gaza. You cannot let people, it's obviously true, but you can't let people know that's true. You cannot say that. In fact, they started calling him an anti Semite when he started talking like this. And then, the second thing is, you cannot say that the October 7th narrative is BS. That's what Charlie Kirk did. He said, I've been to Israel. There's no way. They definitely had to stand down. He said it. He said it. He said it. I'm sorry. And then the third thing is he asked, why is it that Jews are the ones that are predominantly funding these NGOs? Because our greatest ally is supposed to be so concerned with our borders like they are, hold on, like they are concerned with their own borders. Now, those three things are heretical. Why? Because the only people that had a chance of, because they're not going to make more boomers, of sticking with Israel is they're doing all this genocidal lunatic stuff and killing all the Semites in the Middle East. The only
Can we
people that,
like reel it back into
the
to
only people that had a chance of sticking with Israel were the young male conservatives. And those were precisely the people. When Charlie Kirk started talking to Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson, and I see on your feed that you're going after Tucker a lot, Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson, that was anathema. So you're asking me why they would take him out? Because that is the one guy they cannot have walk away from them. Now, if you don't believe that, look at what's happened to Turning Point since then. They are now just the Jerusalem Post. In fact, anybody that talks like Charlie Kirk did right before Charlie Kirk said he was afraid the Israelis were going to kill him, anybody that talked like Charlie Kirk, that talks like them now, is not allowed to interact with Turning Point USA. Doesn't that seem odd to you? Well, that's the answer. There's your answer. There's your evidence of why they would want to take him out. Doesn't mean we have evidence that they did, but it sure looks that way.
In response
you
to
want to
your comment,
respond?
again, I said I had to go, and I really had to go like 3 minutes ago. So I'll try to keep this brief. I think that this is a notion that is trying to make Israel sound as if they're brilliantly behind everything and yet incredibly stupid at the same time. And this is the same thing that we've seen Trump critics been doing ever since he walked onto the national political stage. That he's a completely bumbling fool, but he happens to be a genius in certain other respects. And this is the thing which doesn't make any sense to me. if they're so
I've never called Trump a
well
genius.
coordinated, if they're behind, they're the hidden boogeyman behind every conspiracy that ever happened, and yet they're so stupid that you
Man.
figure it out. They're so stupid that somehow
Don't interrupt him,
they
David.
didn't
Let
think.
him finish.
They're so stupid that somehow they didn't think, hey, you know what? Let's try to reorchestrate Charlie Kirk back into the fold. Let's take him out, which is so inconsistent with the way Mossad has, as far as anyone who's ever been inside there has ever said that they operate, that they take out people who they deem a physical threat to them, not people who are speaking out against them. If they were taking out people who speak out against them, there's a lot of other people out there like Tucker Carlson, like Candace Owens, like a lot of other individuals who are routinely speaking out against them, and that they would be much higher on the list. And that's why I'm saying, when you take someone who you admit would have viewed as being a friend, and you're trying to say, oh, their feelings were hurt, they're angry, and that's why they said you can't walk away, we're going to kill you. It sounds like childish poppycock.
I didn't say
In
feelings.
real
No,
world, it
hold on now.
works.
Hold on now. I didn't say feelings. I said he was the second most important person behind Donald Trump because they, and by the way,
Why?
they did,
Why?
hold on.
Why is
They
he?
did
Because
Why
of
is
try,
he
his
the
hold
second
on.
influence
most
amongst.
important?
Well, let me answer that question. He said it. He could because of his influence amongst young male conservatives. That's why.
Well,
Yeah.
that's which is helpful.
And they did try to
In our
inveigle him back with
politics.
$150 million, which he turned down because the price was too high. He would have had to have no more interview with Tucker Carlson. He would have had no more interviews with Dave Smith. So you're saying, why wouldn't they try that? Well, listen, this is heresy. Don't you understand? You cannot say that. Listen to Mark Levin, what he said when Charlie Kirk started saying these things. You cannot
Don't get
say
me
these
started,
things.
Mark Levin. I hate Mark Levin. Okay, I don't think that he's
Well,
a
that
good
doesn't narrow the
spokesman
field
for
much.
MAGA or anyone. What?
Doesn't
But
we all do? Yes.
I'm sure. I'm sure. What I'm saying is, whenever someone tells me that they have this convenient boogeyman who's behind everything, and they're the ones with the real
Didn't
answers,
say
to me, I'm
everything.
like, I'm sorry. No, every conspiracy there's been so far.
I haven't seen any evidence that Israel was behind this. I have seen evidence of motive for Israel to be
I
behind
really have
this.
to go. I really had to go
Well, I'll
10
be
minutes.
going
I'm
for a few
sorry.
hours, so if you get done, you want to come back, I'll be here.
All
Thank you, Good
right,
Logic.
let's see.
Hey,
Thank
Good
you. Take
Logic
care.
hosts a live podcast covering a lot of what we're talking about, as well as court news. Make sure you follow him on YouTube and on X. Thank you, Good Logic. All right, go ahead, Honey Badger.
Hey, Bill, if we can dial it all the way back to where the conversation was comparing and contrasting JFK to now, one thing that hasn't been discussed, and this is for we the people sort of, I actually looked up in 3 different sources. Did any journalists call for the death penalty of Lee Harvey Oswald? And this is important, I think. Lee Harvey Oswald, at the time that JFK was assassinated, there were no journalists that were calling for the death penalty. And somebody brought up Pam Bondi asking for the firing squad, which is the means of death penalty in Utah. But 2, I can think of 2 off the top of my head, which were Megyn Kelly and Matt Walsh, were calling for the death penalty immediately for I'm sorry, Tyler. Now, if you kind of consider that, and as a matter of fact, at the time, the journalists at the time of JFK's death were saying they were rushing to the death penalty and they needed to stop and not try this in the public. And so I just think, and again, David, I really don't think it was Israel. I'll be very honest with you, because they stood everything to lose by this assassination. I think as a matter of
What did
fact,
they lose?
well, I think that the anti-Zionist sentiment has ramped up since then, and so I mean, it's just an observation, and I think that when you really look at it, the
Do you think the
anti-Zion
anti-Zionist thing is ramped up because of the genocide or because of Charlie Kirk dying?
because of after Charlie Kirk's death, and
So you don't
because of
think the
so many.
genocide in Gaza was the thing?
I don't think so. I think that the
I,
Charlie Kirk's death is probably the.
No, I mean, the genocide has turned the whole world
But
against
except for
Israel.
the
well,
genocide is
well,
here on
I
U.S.
think
soil, and Charlie Kirk's death was. That's why I think it impacts more.
that is kind of my point. And so, but where are we at today when we have journalists who are supposed to be objective, which are supposed to look at the letter of the law, calling for the
They're
death
not
penalty?
journalists. That's why.
You see what I'm saying? And so that was just kind of the thing that I wanted to compare and contrast, and really so we can look at the here and now and look at the shit show that we're in, and ask ourselves: does this guy stand a chance? Does this does this case stand a chance of ever really seeing real justice when the entire, there will never be a not tainted jury pool. There will never be a person that sits on that jury that hasn't seen the circus and is going to be able to be objective about their
It is
decision.
amazing, my friend, about how journalism, every time I sit on Diligent Space and listening to citizen journalism, but we're just asking all the questions. And I have to say, it lent itself. I'm sorry, but notice that we kept beating that drum with Diligent Leading and some other citizen journalists. And all of a sudden, the Epstein files, which they kept saying, there's nothing here, nothing to see, nothing, 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 nothing. And that memory hole they couldn't shut the lid on that memory hole. And then, of course, Massey rode the wave in and he did the great thing that he did. And then the Zorro Ranch thing, same thing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Stop talking about it. Stop talking about it. Citizen journalists, Diligent leading the way. And then all of a sudden, finally, they do something. There's something so weird and so Orwellian about the media. Just absolutely, their dearth of curiosity is just unparalleled. They're not asking the questions. They're not looking at the holes in the story. I mean, look at the way they follow sports teams or everything else, or things about aliens or conspiracies that are just ridiculous. And yet, these basic questions that journalists should be asking, and they're just not talking about it. And then we beat the drum, and then all of a sudden, late in the game, they'll say the thing that maybe has been said on Spaces a year and a half earlier. I mean, it's really a shocking place to be right now.
Well, I put it this way, I don't believe they're getting paid by the sources that we believe that they're getting paid from. I'll just leave it there.
Or it could be Project Mockingbird. I mean, we know now, I mean, this is just all of the stuff that we're becoming aware of, that the CIA has been paying these people. I mean, that these people have been on the dole, and they were on the dole for quite some time. So, and this brings us back to the case we're talking about now. I mean, when we realize just how virulently the government and then their media apparatus have been lying to us, and then we find out, oh, the bullet doesn't fit, and then we see all these other holes, the reasonable doubt, I mean, it just doesn't this at least scream reasonable doubt? Doesn't everybody suspect that the government is purposefully lying to us, as we have proven that they have during COVID and everything else?
Yeah, David, I certainly think you're right there. And listening to all of you, we cannot allow ourselves to be typecast as rooting for Robinson's acquittal simply because we notice clear inconsistencies with the official narrative. And I think that's where we're all at. Because David, curiosity and critical thinking, it mandates that we don't ignore the facts just because it may prevent the outcome many would prefer. So how could at least one jury member not have any reasonable doubt given the preponderance of evidence? And if it's the wrong bullet and the wrong gun, something's terribly amiss there. And then we have to also address
Well,
when
it's not. I just
evidence.
want to clarify for our
Yep.
audience. It's not the wrong bullet with the wrong gun. It's a bullet that can't be matched. It's inconclusive to the gun. So those aren't the same thing. I think it's an objective
Right.
distinction to make.
Yep. Okay, fine. Happy to accept that point. And so when evidence disappears, we must also ask Diligent, who's in a position to make that evidence disappear? Because there's been lots of evidence which has
The
disappeared, and it could be
FBI.
recordings, etc. And do they need that to allow themselves to continue in the direction they'd prefer to take this prosecution in? Um, I just find that when recorded information goes missing, we have to allow ourselves to consider the various reasons as to why that crucial evidence must go missing for the narrative to remain in place.
That
And
sound that sounded like it was
Real
Doc's
quick, I
point.
just want to do a little housekeeping. If you guys could, we have almost 700 people in here and like 50, 60 reposts. If you could take a second to go down to the comment section below the reply section and hit the repost button, share the space. We're competing with a bunch of foreign botters. So thank you so much. Continue,
Yeah,
Dave.
I would say this, that sounds like Doc's point, and I didn't think about it until Doc mentioned it. And I'll pose this as a question to you, Diligent. Do you think that maybe the evidence was tampered with because maybe the bullet was provably, not a match? I don't know. I really am so incredulous. Maybe the other question is, what is the
Dude,
next? Sorry, go ahead.
well, you are so an investigation can go to one of two ways, right? It is a broad investigation where you exhaust all available leads, right? And cast as wide a net as possible, right? That's actually the proper kind of investigation here. Or there's another kind of investigation where you limit the scope of that net and the possibilities and focus on one thing at the expense of other things that you are excluding, right? And there are numerous examples of the investigation here being limited in scope at the expense of other potential leads and opportunities. Joe Kent's just one of many examples of that. The SD card, walking away from the crime scene, not in the hands of law enforcement, right? Like there are so many examples of inconsistencies, anomalies, and discrepancies at the surface level of this case, right? Without having to even see discovery, that it begs the question, why are they limiting the scope? What are they trying to exclude? If they can't prove this gun shot Charlie Kirk, did they take the SD card because we might have seen a shooter somewhere else? Is that why?
Or an explosion come from a different direction.
Or an explosion coming from a different direction? I don't buy that, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, my friend. What is the next best piece of evidence? Let's think like the prosecution now. What is it? Is it the supposed confession? Because that looks like kabuki theater. I just don't. That reminds me of Scooby Doo, where the bad guy just explains himself right afterwards. Like it's a Scooby Doo moment. Where he goes, "I did this, and of course, here's the reason." I don't like. I guess is that the next best? Like, what if you're the prosecution? What is your next best piece of evidence?
I don't know. I mean, because not being able to tie the bullet to the gun and then depending on narrative to try to like steer public opinion because the jury hasn't been selected yet, it makes it looks desperate. It looks like you don't have a really strong case. If I had to guess, the next best piece of evidence, which they started virtue signaling about today, just happened to be that the prosecution is calling. And what's funny is that the way that they are spinning this, the prosecution is calling his roommate, the trans kid,
the furry guy.
Yeah, they're calling his roommate as a state's witness and his parents. Now, let me be clear: either the defense or the prosecutor can call witnesses. The defense does not do so until after the prosecutor supplies their discovery, which includes material witnesses. So the prosecutor calls witnesses first. They create the first list of witnesses, and then the defense gets to respond and also pull witnesses. Those witnesses don't belong to one side or the other, right? They are cross-examined, so they get equal time to question and examine each of these witnesses being called. So the spin machine out there, Con Inc., and they were out there hard today. Oh, Tyler Robinson's mom and parents are testifying on behalf of the state. Well, that's because the state gets to call witnesses first. Fucking retarded.
Do they have to testify?
That tells you that they don't have a strong case because they're relying on spinning and semantics and being dishonest to the public, the jury pool, to try to win this case. That tells me they don't have a smoking gun. They don't have a lot of evidence. That tells me that they're scared, right? That's what's indicative to me.
And
Yeah,
now they
spot
don't have
on.
the smoking
Because
bullets.
we were told, we've all been
Diligent,
told
do
this
you
is an open and
remember?
shut
My
case.
co-host is speaking right now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear him.
That's fine. We've all been told this is an open and shut case, though. And this is why it's frustrating for many people, because no one ever believed it's an open and shut case from its inception. It was meant to be a slam dunk, which is why they pushed immediately and publicised the death penalty. You also have to throw into this, the mainstream media has obviously cast him as the perpetrator of it, and combined with
Both the legacy
Charlie's
and the
wife.
new media. Yep.
And Charlie's wife has said, forgive him. I forgive him, which basically means he's guilty, but we're Christians, we forgive him. They wanted this whole thing to go away. It's not going away anytime soon. And I was always wondering, will his legal team do the right thing there? And I suspect they should be able to do something to say, well, if there's an inconsistency there, I just don't believe that receiving the death penalty when key evidence is inconclusive can be interpreted as anything other than antithetical to justice. Like the death penalty has to be 100% certain, right? Well, that would be the best hope for the death penalty.
Could you imagine a 21-year-old kid who has never broken a law in his life being sacrificed so that Charlie Kirk couldn't speak anymore? And the United States, it seems demonic that there is even a chance that a completely innocent kid, maybe not completely innocent, right? But who was not guilty of this murder, at least, right? That an innocent kid might be his ritually like human sacrifice, so that way evil agendas or that policy can go unchallenged, right? Um, that seems so demonic to me, right? Like, can you imagine that we're all the America is united in cheering for the death of an innocent kid? That way, Republican establishment figures can remain hold power unchallenged by the younger generation of Charlie Kirk, right? That is incredibly dark. I think that's incredibly dark.
It is, and that's what David was speaking about earlier on. He was touching upon the key bono aspect of this. Who stood to gain the most from it? Was there a vested interest in silencing Charlie and removing his voice from the future of American politics? Given, prior to his death, he was shifting somewhat in the views he would at least share publicly in condemnation of a foreign country, where previously he was meant to have a blind allegiance to that. So
And
certainly,
if
key
you were
bono. Go ahead,
if,
David.
if you, my friend, were wanting to make sure that foreign interests or the deep state wasn't impugned or implicated in this, you would want the investigation to be wider. You would want to, dot all those I's and cross all those T's. If you like, let's Diligent, you're absolutely right. It would be 1,000 times better if it was just Tyler Robinson. Like how dark things have gotten, there is a significant swath, bigger than it's ever been, of people who are simply going to stop voting because our government is so corrupt. We are now the government of Howard Lutnick. Come on, he came out and said, and then he lied. Let's not go down that road. But the point is, if you were the state and you had all of this where people were like, you're just liars and the criminality is so rampant, you would want to dot you wouldn't close down the investigation. You wouldn't cover up the crime scene and rebuild it. You wouldn't delete. I mean, for goodness sakes, what government has ever wanted less evidence when they're prosecuting a case?
They literally destroyed the crime scene
Yeah.
days later.
Yeah, and then haven't they deleted a whole bunch of stuff? Didn't you tell me, didn't I see in one of your posts and videos that they had deleted the bringing in of Tyler Robinson, that they had
Yeah.
deleted? I mean, that's just unbelievable to me. Like, folks, everybody in the room, what people that want to catch the bad guy and prosecute him would be like, okay, let's get rid of as much evidence that helps us as possible. You'd only want to get rid of the evidence if it countervailed what you were trying to accomplish. And listen, that still doesn't make Tyler Robinson innocent. But the point is, if the political state is acting like criminals, then they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt from the rest of us. They should widen the scope if they want to look innocent. They should widen the scope if they want to look like they really care about justice. They haven't done that. And Joe Kent, for goodness sakes, an expert in counterterrorism, told us that. So look, are we going to believe our lying eyes and our lying ears, or are we going to believe the people that never stop lying to us?
There's another thing that Joe Kent told us. He told us that Charlie wanted no war in Iran. He told Joe Kent
We have that
that.
on video.
And yeah, and the thing is when you talk about the power that Charlie Kirk had for messaging, I bet they didn't want that to get out too far, just saying. But Diligent, one of the interesting anomalies way back when that you were posing is we were all going over how Tyler Robinson got that gun in and out of his pants walking up a stairs. You were there. You went physically.
You know what I saw them trying to say today when my post went viral about the gun not matching the bullet. They were trying to tell me that he had two guns. It's like, hold on a second.
There you
Hold on
go.
a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I mimicked, and I've seen other people do it, but I walked up the stairs where they photographed him, Tyler Robinson, allegedly, walking upstairs with this 30-06 jammed down his skinny jeans. He weighs 150 pounds soaking wet. He's wearing skinny jeans, and supposedly he has this 30-06 stuffed down his pants, his skinny jeans, and then is peg legging up the stairway in a parking lot, and up the stairs to get to where the gunshot was taken at. And not only is not he's inconspicuous doing this, which is just asinine, but I was struggling to do it, right? And there's photos of him in the stairway where you can clearly see there is no protrusion in his pants. He's not like walking at some kind of like his knee is bent, which would be impossible to do without a protruding barrel, even if he had the gun broken in half, which I think is unlikely, right? But it was to say that he had it. The barrel, okay, the stock and barrel, respectively, are longer than the length from his knee to his foot, right? So you would see the barrel protruding somewhere. So let's just say that for argument's sake, that's the case. Let's just say that he did that. When I was like, hey, this bullet doesn't match the gun. There are people, or maybe they're bots. I think they're bots, to be honest with you. But the replies, because they don't follow me. But as soon as I went viral, all of these dogpiled bots and some are bots, some are just whatever, started jumping in saying, oh, well, there was two guns. Tyler Robinson had two guns. Well, you can't explain the first gun. Now you got to add another gun to it. There's a desperation for the narrative going on here.
Yeah, both legs, Diligent. He had guns in both pants.
Go ahead, Clinton.
Yeah.
Clinton.
Yeah. Hey, Diligent. I want to say, first of all, thank you for hosting this space. And I think it's important, too, to remember that, well, a couple of things. So the first thing is the spaces that you've held, you've talked at length, and correctly so, about the direction of the bullets, the entry and exit points. So there's you've collected a lot of interviews and research data over the last X number of months or however long it's been, showing that, that the case is not really the way that it's been portrayed. That's the first thing. So thank you for keeping these topics alive. The second thing is, and this is not aimed at anyone, but, and maybe I misheard, but I thought I heard someone say, like, well, all these journalists that were calling for, Charlie Kirk to be given the death penalty. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not aware of any journalists that did that, but I am aware of lots of commentators who did that. And, like, Megyn Kelly isn't a journalist. Like, Megyn Kelly is a commentator and a talk jock. She's not an investigative journalist. She's not a reporter.
She's a pundit. Yeah,
she's a pundit. So when I say a commentator, that's what I mean. But, yeah, like a pundit is another way to say that. So she's not a journalist. And this is not aimed at Megyn Kelly. This is aimed at all of these individuals that were connected or either directly or indirectly connected to the White House in the week of those events, who were calling for his immediate, the immediate death penalty to be given. So, I think, anyways, I just wanted to point that out, that there's lots of journalists that have been asking questions, and Diligent is one of them, and there's lots of others in the legacy media that have also been asking questions. And I think it's important for us to remember, the difference between a pundit and a commentator and a journalist. And
well, she is a journalist by trade, by the way.
Well, she may be by trade, but she's not a practicing journalist.
Okay.
She's not a practicing journalist. I mean, it's not an opinion. That's an undisputed fact. She goes on television, every day or every couple of days, whatever it is, and she expresses her opinion of the people that she loves and she dislikes. and she explains.
You don't think real journalists express their opinions?
No, I don't. I really don't.
I mean, I express my opinion. I think when you try to hide behind the veil of objectivity is where you get lost in the sauce. Everybody has a bias and opinion.
Sure, I'm not.
Right?
I'm not
so
arguing that.
I think it's important to just acknowledge your bias, right?
Okay, fair
acknowledge
enough. Fair
it,
enough. People,
and then try to be fair. Because and when you acknowledge it publicly, whenever you're having trying to have an objective conversation, the bias is there out front, and you can be like, I'm trying to navigate around this as much as possible, and that lets everybody see that fairly, right? All sides can see where your bias is. You've declared it, right? But if you are being fair beyond your bias, well, then that's clear. And if you're not, that's also clear, right? So I think that is like saying that anybody who has an opinion, right, or a bias is not a journalist. I think it's objectively false.
Well, let me rephrase that, right? So, if you host a, let's say a news talk radio program where you're talking about how evil politician A is and what a saint politician B is, you're not a journalist. You're a commentator. You're a talk jock, right? So, anyways, and the only other thing I want to throw in there is that a lot of people are saying like, well, imagine if what's the individual's name, Robinson, if he'd been given the death penalty, well, maybe the policing, security, intelligence network doesn't want this case to be resolved. Like maybe the preference is for this person to be terminated in order to make this go away.
That's the way the cards are stacking up.
Yeah, that's my point, right? So like a lot of people get caught up in this like, oh, well, this is not how justice works. Yeah, that's correct. In theory, that's not how justice should work.
By the way, Flot Sam said this in the comments. I take my morning walks with a 30-06 and a 270 stuffed down my pants. It's invigorating.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, but that is the point of this, where I say maybe the preference is for Robinson to be terminated, right? Because if he's terminated, then the issue goes away.
And he can't talk.
Exactly. Right. So if the issue goes away and he can't talk,
I think it's more likely that he's a material witness to this case, and in maybe an accomplice to conspiracy.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct in your analysis. I have felt the same, and for the record, I'm not an American citizen, so I don't have a dog or a horse in this race, but I agree with you. Like, since I've been watching this case unfold, I agree with you 100% that is the most likely scenario, and that is, that would be, I'm not saying this is the case, but when someone asks the question, like, why would this be allowed to happen? Well, that would be the most obvious answer as to why that would be allowed to happen. Anyways, I'll shut up and listen to everyone else.
Well, no, I think the scary thing, my friend, is that if the deep state was part of this, they cannot let him walk. I mean, I'm worried about an Epstein situation. Believe me, I think they could plea out like Diligent. I thought this all along. Hey, maybe this guy's part of it. If he is, they'll plea out because there's not enough evidence to be pleading out. That doesn't make any sense. And I don't know, at the very beginning, maybe a week after the assassination, you asked the question, why isn't there a big time lawyer taking this case? Where is the Clarence Darrow type saying, oh my gosh, this would be great?
Well, I mean, there was I can say this from speaking to his family, that they did contact a big private lawyer, and the retainer alone, this isn't with other hourly fees and whatever, was $100,000, and they could not afford it. So that's why he.
No, but we were asking, why wouldn't they just do it pro bono? Why wouldn't they want this case? Why wouldn't they want to hang? Like the guy who defended Bruno Hauptmann. That, like, to have the case that that gets world national.
Yeah, why would you not want the notoriety, the clout, the attention?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's because he confessed. It's like, can we go and talk about those confessions and debunk them?
He did not fucking confess. Where is there a signed confession?
Well, a signed confession is different from saying something in text messages.
No, there was no confession.
There's no confession.
There's no
So you're
confession.
saying that there was no text messages that he was talking to his
Well, first of all,
lover.
you're talking about two different things here. A confession in this context is a signed confession, a sworn affidavit given to the police or to the prosecutor
That's
of admission,
fine.
an admission of the crime. That's
I
what
agree.
a confession is. An admission, which is an admission of committing something.
I
right,
agree,
is
but
what you're describing. But we
right,
have
but he's
seen
admitting something to
zero.
his
We have
family.
seen zero
No,
and friends.
evidence. We have seen zero evidence of admission of doing this crime.
Well, I mean, like that. I don't think that's really true, but that's fine.
You know, just to further Diligent's
Okay,
point.
so do you have evidence that he admitted to this crime? Direct evidence? Primary
yes,
evidence?
text messages where he admitted to it.
You saw the original text messages of him admitted to this crime?
I saw the text messages that were in the charging document, and it's illegal to go and put.
Those are reconstructed text messages.
But yeah, that's what you're saying. But what you're saying is that you have to admit.
Have you seen the original text messages of him admitting to this crime, or even a copy of them?
Yeah, but is it necessary to make that claim? Is it necessary to see? Well, I know, but why is it though? Because in the charging document,
the standard of evidence, the charging document is allegations. Those are allegations. I'm not having this circular argument with you. I'm not doing it tonight. So if you want to have this discussion, right, come at me with the screenshots, or otherwise stop wasting our time.
I know we're not going to have that until after the trial, though. That's the reason why you say this.
No,
that's the reason why you do. Because we're not going to have these screenshots.
The government has to present its evidence during discovery. Okay, they have to present when they go to charge him. They have to present their smoking gun that says that he's guilty of this crime.
Correct.
That way, it's a justified
and their probable
trial.
Cause.
So,
and their probable cause to charge him was text messages.
No, probable
and they put that in a charging document that makes it illegal to lie about.
There's varying instances in the phase of justice of probable cause. Probable cause is something that is done by investigators when they can supersede our Fourth Amendment rights to not be searched and seized. So you have to have probable cause, which is a legal justification where you can prove that a law is being broken, that gave an investigator probable cause to break our Fourth Amendment protection. If it means getting into a car, going into a house, or reading our communications, right? That's where probable cause starts. Right now, probable cause changes in definition and scope and function when you get into the court system, right? Probable cause in some states, and this is varying, there's different terms used based on which state you're in when you're in court, right? But it's called an evidentiary hearing in this case, right? In Utah, it's an evidentiary hearing, which is what the motion was that's going viral everywhere. That is a motion to get a continuance on the evidentiary hearing because the ATF has not supplied the defense with the lead comparisons for ballistics. They have not supplied the defense with all the DNA, trace DNA evidence, so that they can have it independently examined by forensics experts, right? So the legal or the justice system is dropping the ball in that regard, right? So again, descriptions of evidence are not evidence, right? We're talking about ballistics here. They don't match the gun.
Diligent, there's an important thing too about text messages. I'm not sure if you've discussed this or not, but depending on your provider that your mobile service is with, text messages cannot always be sent from a phone. So, like, let's say, for example, that you're with, provider Potato, and provider Potato allows you to send text messages from a desktop or a laptop or a tablet.
iOS does that natively. They can do
that's
iMessages.
My point. So, like, when people come on and they say things like, well, apparently there's text messages. Well, to Diligent's point, can we see the text messages? Can we actually see the data trail of the text messages? And can we see whether or not the text messages were sent from a mobile phone or were they sent from some other device?
We need a device ID. We need all of the metadata,
Correct.
the device ID, the
Correct.
location
That's why I think
where he was when he sent it. the
Correct.
IP
That's why I think
address,
I know, but that's why I think it's important,
the
right?
tower ping.
Wait,
I mean, there's a lot geolocation data.
but that's why I think it's important because the defense and Tyler Robinson could easily go to the carrier and get these things if it's in dispute.
No, they don't have to. Because
no, I know, but if it's you're saying that it's in dispute,
yeah, they can go
that
get a
the
compare.
text
Yeah, they can.
messages are
They definitely can.
right.
As a matter of
Right.
fact,
So what you're saying
they
is
should subpoena
that
this, but you don't.
right.
You don't know
What
that
you're
there
saying
are text
is
messages.
that the text messages.
Hold on. There's
Go
no
ahead.
confession. There's no confession as of yet. You have no confession.
Legally, sure. Legally,
Okay.
the way that you're framing it, sure,
well,
that's
I mean,
fine.
this is a legal
Right?
case. So
He's saying it to people that he didn't.
yeah, again, I'm not having
So
this. I'm not like. Again,
Yeah, we just said we don't know that he's saying it. Yeah, we just said that we don't know that he's saying it.
I know. So what I'm saying is, here's my evidence for
we're
why
talking about a court case, and I'm like, there's no confession. And you're like,
here's why I
right,
think that here's why I think that it's correct. Is because for the defense, it's very easy for them to go and get the carrier data and go and say, hey, no, these actual text messages weren't sent. What they're saying inside this charging document is not correct. Right. So that makes somebody liable for putting false information inside the charging document because it's illegal. It's illegal in the state of Utah.
All it does is create a hole of reasonable doubt. Right. So we don't have to prove a negative here. The onus is on the prosecutor to present evidence that cannot be destroyed or discounted by the defense. That proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Tyler Robinson is guilty of this crime. Okay. We don't know. And to be fair, we don't know what all they have yet because they haven't even given it over to the defense. Right. That's why the defense is asking for a continuation. I was getting ready to go to Utah in May, but it looks like it might not be. This trial might get pushed back till next fall or winter. Right? Before we even get to the evidentiary hearing.
Yeah, the defense called out like multiple terabytes of information that they have to go through. So I understand why they're requesting a delay. So I mean, it makes sense because
it was like
so much data. Yeah, no, it's something fucking crazy. Which is that's a lot of data.
So many terabytes of data that it is still like transferring. Let's go to Eddie. Go ahead, Eddie.
Well, I just wanted to confirm, right? So now the ballistics came out inconclusive, right? Because apparently the bullet was fragmented, so they couldn't get rifling marks. Is that my understanding?
I mean, we haven't seen the full ATF report. That's some spin that I've heard. It just said that it came back this is the verbatim from the court document. The ATF could not match the bullet fragment to Tyler Robinson's alleged gun.
That's right. So it's inconclusive. So the bullet was degraded so much that they could not conclusively match it to the rifle. Now, that doesn't mean that the rifle was not the weapon that shot, Charlie Kirk.
No, it does not.
It just means they can't identify conclusively 100%.
Okay, so is it fair to say if it did match, you would say it does match?
That's right. They would say yes.
And if you can't match it, then you can say it doesn't match.
They just say they cannot say that. They can't say that was the rifle because they can't prove it.
Either
right?
I mean, you can't. Either you can match it, or either it does match or it does not match. It's only a binary answer.
But they can't match it to any rifle.
Either it does.
They wouldn't be able to match it to any rifle. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. It does not match that rifle.
Right, but there's other evidence, right? It's not just the bullet, right?
But that's a big deal, bro.
It is a big deal, but it's not single-handedly the saying that was not the rifle that shot. I mean, there's powder residue, there's the bullet casing, there's all kinds of evidence, right? They can tell that rifle was shot recently.
That's the reason why the defense is moving to delay the hearing in May, is because they want these tests to go through so that they can come back, so that they can be addressed.
Here's the problem, though, with this whole idea of the bullet being so deteriorated. Remember when the narrative was that and I'm speaking to someone who's shot a 30-06. The narrative was that a 30-06 will go through a buck, but Charlie Kirk was superhuman and he had a superhuman muscle structure. And I guess they're saying that the bullet never went through him as a result of that and maybe hit his spine. So they're saying that not only was he so superhuman that the bullet wouldn't go through him, but also now that it completely fragmented the bullet beyond all comprehension. This is getting to be a very interesting narrative that they're pushing forward.
Yeah,
Yeah,
David, didn't
it's actually all BS. I've dropped a moose before, and I can tell you right now that the muscle structure on a moose and the bone structure on a moose is going to be a lot stronger than Charlie Kirk or any other human being on this planet. So that line alone should cause a lot of investigative journalists to start asking questions like, what is going on here with these explanations?
Did they say, Diligent, where they got the bullet? Like, where did they physically find the bullet? Did they find it inside of Charlie Kirk?
According to the, and we don't have the full ME report yet. That's the defense does apparently. Well, most of it, I guess. They don't have the tissue samples, but according to what's been publicly reported, we don't know exactly because we don't have the ME report, that it was found lodged in his neck. So.
Did you guys say that they handed over terabytes and terabytes of data to the defense? Did I hear that correctly?
They are still sending it. Yeah. So let me
they've got all this data, but they don't have the video footage.
That's
part of it too.
That's crazy. Let me read this though. Let me read this. So it's here.
Please retweet the space while he's looking for that.
Yes, please. Bottom right corner, repost the space. Thank you so much. If you're over on YouTube, hit that like button and share the YouTube channel with your friends and family, so people, if they're not on X, they can see what's going on here. It is evident from the foregoing. Now, this is I'm reading an excerpt from the defense document. It is evident from the foregoing defense has been diligent in seeking available DNA discovery and retaining needed experts and providing them with discovery and in formulating a reasonable work plan for completion of the defense independent analysis of the state's DNA evidence. What is preventing that plan from going forward is the incomplete status of the DNA discovery as outlined in the defense's March 25th, 2026 informal discovery request. So they are still waiting for the state to turn over its evidence. They have to. The state has to make all evidence available for the defense to look at and challenge and have independently investigated. That way they can have a proper defense against the prosecution. You don't have a fair trial if you otherwise.
But you would think that's good though, that there's multiple terabytes.
So regarding the firearm evidence, the defense has been provided with an ATF summary report, which indicates that the ATF was unable to identify the bullet recovered at an autopsy to the rifle allegedly tied to Mr. Robinson. Let me read it one more time. Quote, regarding the firearm evidence, the defense has been provided with an ATF summary report, which indicates that the ATF was unable to identify the bullet recovered at the autopsy to the rifle allegedly tied to Mr. Robinson. Now, people are saying that it's inconclusive. That is actually not what it says. It says that it's unable to identify it to that specific gun, which means that it could still potentially be identified to a different gun based on how they said it. Now, this is the defense's presentation, and so this is not conclusive, but that's what they're saying in their statement, is that it does not tie to that gun, right? It doesn't say that it can't be tied to any gun. That's not what it says. So that's an important distinction to make, Eddie. And also, it goes on. Hold on. It goes on to say, although the state has not indicated an intent to produce this report at the preliminary hearing, which is interesting. Why wouldn't they? It's the ballistics report. The defense may very well decide to offer the testimony of the ATF firearms analyst, the one who made the report, as exculpatory evidence. That means exculpatory means that this evidence could potentially exonerate Tyler Robinson of the crime, prove he is innocent, right? So what that report says, obviously the defense is like, this is key, right? And it looks like that because they had like a preliminary kind of discovery motion hearing, right? When they were talking about how much time they needed to get all the evidence over from the prosecutor to the defense. The defense, it sounded like the defense or the prosecutor wasn't planning on presenting the ballistics report, which I think is insane, for the preliminary evidentiary hearing, which is where he pleads guilty or not guilty, and the main body of evidence has to be presented to the public and to the court by the prosecutor to show that they had probable cause to accuse him of this crime. So
Well,
that is interesting.
It is interesting, Diligent, but you're reading a defense document right there, right? So they're wording things that are going to shield their
I said
client.
it's not conclusive.
I understand. Now, so we're not privy to the actual discovery of the material. So, yeah, I don't know. We can go round and round. You're not going to know until we get the actual evidence,
Not a good look.
Just one thing with that, Diligent, I guess to follow up on what you said, mate, I think the presence of any unmatched physical evidence, that has always remained a constant and cornerstone for the defense to build a robust defense against murder charges specifically, right? So if the evidence isn't there in regards to murder, well, the defense, they have a duty and a responsibility to use that. And David, when you were mentioning earlier, and Clinton as well, the density of the frame or the skeletal frame of the animals, etc., is far denser and stronger than humans. Well, why wouldn't his defense then run 1,000 tests and fire that bullet into something as soft as a human, and then run the same test against an animal and clearly show the jury that if they are saying this bullet struck Charlie in the neck, we've done 1,000 shots replicating that from that exact distance with the same bullet, the same gun, etc. And clearly, this is not the wound which should have been received. There is no, David, is it your belief that there is no way that bullet should have stopped in his body? It should have passed through.
I can only say that I did target practice in the country in the mountains with 30-06. And I was firing through pieces of basically roof tin, on the sides of old stills and things. And I was firing through those. But I have heard people that know a lot more about this stuff than I do, including, I think, the guy who took out Osama bin Laden, and they were incredulous. I think that the question that you present is going to be very interesting when the trial actually takes place. What claim is the prosecution going to make? If they start working around that, then they're going to know that the defense is going to take them down. Diligent's right. They have to share evidence. They have to, whatever it is that they're going to present. This isn't like TV, right? There isn't like, okay, surprise witness. No, they're all going to know what the evidence that each other's going to have. I do think that it sounds to me like from what Diligent said, that they're data dumping. I think they're trying to give the defense so much evidence that it's really hard to parse through. But I don't think that'll work because of the things you're talking about. I mean, the big salient points? How could Tyler Robinson have moved the way he did? How could he have disassembled and reassembled the guns? And what time? You have to make your claim logically how all this happened. And again, I just want to repeat for everybody in the room, you have to convince 12 people unanimously that this happened. I really think that the announcement that we're going to, firing squad, I think that was a desperate attempt to prejudice the jury. I think really what they don't want is the jury just to look at the evidence, because the defense is going to poke a lot of holes, including the one you just mentioned.
Yeah, we'll
What
chime
if
in
they
on this
don't
as
go
well,
for a
guys.
jury? Oh,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Well, why is it considered abnormal and troublesome and not at all helpful to maintain any type of stance that the prosecution must absolutely prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Robinson definitely was the sole assassin? It appears to me that the framing of this entire narrative doesn't pass the sniff test. Something is certainly rotten here And as Diligent was saying before, people with an interest in truth, they won't be deterred from exploring all angles wherever they may lead, even if that leads back to a culprit who is not somebody who the mainstream media, Erica Kirk, Turning Point USA, Uncle Sam would prefer it to be. It's not an open and shut case anymore. I think this is open for everybody.
There is
I
no
do want,
such.
David, if I could add something.
Please, excuse me.
Thank you. One thing I want to talk about the DNA, because Diligent, you said there's something funky about that with the report with the DNA that they're doing. They've had 6 months. Charlie's been dead 6 months. DNA should be decided by now, in my opinion. The second thing is to speak to what Speak Freely was saying regarding, are there experts who tested this? Yes. Early on, there were military guys, there were all kinds of experts who set up from the same angles, that gun shooting an animal, okay, shooting a setup animal and shooting it, and that result, and then what might be a similar setup of a human flesh, as best as they could set it up with bone, and what that was. There are all kinds of video out there that speak to the difference between shooting an animal with that gun and what would happen to a human. So that research, I should say, is out there.
Yeah, if it shatters through bones that are far denser in the animal than what they are in the human, well, it stands to reason that that bullet would obviously shatter the human bone in comparison. And for anyone to expect us to believe it would not, when they run 1,000 tests or whatever it may be to prove otherwise, that has to be kept on the table, correct? It has to be there. And is that exculpatory evidence as well? It's at least reasonable doubt. There has to be one that would say something's amiss here, I think.
Well,
It's
and then
definitely
go ahead.
it's definitely reasonable doubt, and it makes me think of the word demonic came up earlier, and the possibility that Tyler's being sacrificed for this agenda. When this first happened, the claims being made by at least some people I saw were that Charlie's bones were so dense that it stopped the bullet and prevented ricochets so that nobody else got hurt. This is either like a genuine miracle from God, or they're mocking Christians. I just don't see how it could be.
I think it's the latter.
Yeah, probably.
Well, I will say this. Everyone should read J'accuse by Émile Zola, because the Dreyfus Affair unfairly put a Jewish man on trial. And what they were really doing was covering up for the government, for what the government had done. And because this very powerful intellectual writer, Émile Zola, who just wrote fiction, decided, well, I'm going to stick up for this man. He basically was the diligent denizen of his day. And he just kept hammering and hammering and hammering. And what did they say? Stop thinking, stop talking. Why are you talking about this? Don't look at the information. So really is, what's so similar is that they fought for the soul of their republic, and France was better off because it was all uncovered and all those bad people went away. So that's what we're fighting for here, is the soul of our republic. The political class, and they did this with Epstein, they say there is some greater good. We have to let the Epstein people go because there's the implication is that there is something more important than this. Even our Speaker of the House said there are intelligence considerations, there are national security considerations around the Epstein files. Well, what? What are you what? You're literally tying pedophilia to national security. Don't you sort of giving away that our government's gone wrong? Well, that's where we are now. Like, we have to follow the facts. And I'm sorry, but if it impugns the political state, then we'll be the better for it. We'll believe in a republic more. The bad guys will hopefully go to jail, and an innocent person will go free, just like with Dreyfus.
Well, can
And
they place Tyler at the scene? Is that something that we do know?
Not that we know. No, not that we've seen thus far.
I mean, because if I'm a defense,
Eddie,
I'm definitely
there's no
trying
smoking gun here.
Right, that you're trying to build a defense for a reasonable doubt, right? So the bullet forensics, definitely something you want to go after. If they can't place him at the scene, well, that adds a whole nother layer, right? I don't know, man. There's definitely some good things that the defense can work with. I don't know how much money they have to work with. I mean, how much forensic analysis and everything, they have the money to do that. I don't know.
I mean, they have the state's budget.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like so far that they're pushing a foreign nexus for this. At least not yet, anyways.
Allow me to
why did
ask
you
you,
bring that
Logic.
up into it? Go, sorry, continue.
No, Logic, and also for yourself, Eddie. Given what you've just said, well, when the ballistic forensics failed to link the recovered bullet or projectile to the defendant's firearm, in this case to Robinson's, his defense attorneys, they must argue that perhaps another weapon was used, right? Which would lead to supporting claims of his innocence or complicity in it, or the reality of a third party perpetrator. Like, if the ballistics don't match, how do we go from there?
Well, sure that there could be, the defense could go and say, hey, this didn't happen, right? But there's supporting evidence around this besides ballistics, especially in cases where bullets fragment. This is kind of like a normal thing where they can't conclusively say that rifling happened. We do the same. It's chemical isotopes where we go and test leads, right? Back in the 80s and 90s, we kind of dismissed it because it was kind of like a new science. Now we've refined it a little bit. So there's still things that can be done to go and put these bullets in the possession of Tyler Robinson. So it's not just because rifling on a bullet or on a fragment isn't conclusive doesn't mean there's other ways to do this. And they even stipulate in the court documents that they're still doing this analysis.
Logic, who's in the advantageous position right now, given the latest revelations? Would it be the defense or the prosecution that is resting easier this evening?
Well, I mean, that's that's kind of subjective, right? But I don't think that the prosecution is necessarily losing sleep over this case, right? So it's just like I don't know. It's like it's subjective, right? So everybody can say anything different. But for me personally, I don't think the prosecution is losing sleep over this. It was kind of to be expected with a bullet that fragments.
Go ahead, Imperator.
Oh, I had jumped on because I have to disagree that Dreyfus was obviously innocent. I think if you really dig into that matter, you'll find that the weight of evidence points more to him being guilty. And he was tried repeatedly in a French tribunal, a military tribunal, and he was found guilty repeatedly. And then, interestingly, he was attacked when they were interring Emile Zola at the French Pantheon, and the attacker was able to convince a jury that he was innocent by, by reason that Dreyfus was actually guilty, and therefore, he was rightfully enraged, and it convinced a jury. So I don't know. I think if you read the whole evidence about the bordereau and how it was discovered, and I think it's not obvious to me that he's innocent.
What do you think about the ballistics?
With the Charlie Kirk case, I think it's pretty ridiculous to think that his neck could stop a bullet. I find that hard to believe. But I'm not a ballistics expert.
Well, the claim is that the spinal column is what deteriorated the bullet and also stopped it, which I think is also ridiculous when we're talking about a 30-06. But
I'm not a gun expert or a ballistics expert, but as a layperson, that's surprising to me. I find that hard to believe as a layperson that his neck stopped a bullet.
What do you think it does to the case that they can't match the bullet to the gun?
It's hard to say. I mean, I don't know. I think you have to see what other experts say. I don't know how often it is that a bullet cannot be matched. If an expert comes up and says, there's only I don't know, 30% of the time the bullet can be matched or something, then that might not be so compelling that they're not able to match it. It's one of those things, I suspect it's one of those things, it's going to be presented as one of those things where it would definitely prove that the bullet came from that gun, but not being able to match it doesn't disprove that it came from that gun. So without being able to
Correct.
match it to a different gun, I'm not sure it will be that significant. It certainly doesn't, it doesn't become a point of, if it can't be matched to the gun, it doesn't become a point of
But then
evidence.
you can't prove that gun killed Charlie Kirk. The gun
Yeah, but there's
becomes
obviously a lot of circumstantial
right.
evidence.
Then all of the other what?
There's obviously a lot of circumstantial evidence that they have the guy jumping off the building, being at the
But they
scene.
didn't catch him there with the gun, right? So the gun was found separately at a different time.
But if
You
you
can't like
yeah,
then it becomes incredibly difficult to put Tyler Robinson, that gun, that bullet at that time at the same place,
I think you have to
right?
look. So if it is a gun that would, so if it's the right type of bullet for that gun, that would be circumstantial evidence, right? Like if you can say that this is the type of munition for this gun, and we know that he owned this gun and he was there, that's all circumstantial. It's not definitive. It doesn't definitively prove that that is the gun that fired this bullet, um, but it's certainly circumstantial, right? He's there. He is known to have this gun in his possession that fired the right kind of bullet that killed him. So that's pretty. The likelihood of all those things happening is with someone else at the scene is pretty low, right?
Um, I maybe not when it's presented with the context of potential foreign involvement, right? Like if we because we don't know all the evidence, so maybe the defense can say, "Look, there's something that it looks like there may have been more than one person involved with this murder at the crime scene. We don't know who the shooter was." Right? You just have to inject doubt into the
But
conversation. You
if
don't
also, so
reasonable doubts all the bar is reasonable doubt. It's not
I
proving
guess
who killed
you have
Charlie
to
Kirk
answer
and
that.
how.
So if
They
we're
don't have
saying
to
that,
actually solve the crime.
well,
Well,
most crimes are not solved definitively. They're based on circumstantial evidence, right? That's not you. If you have a preponderance of circumstantial evidence that shows that a
Right.
particular person had means and
Motive.
availability to have committed the crime, and motive, sure, would also be helpful, then that's how I think most crimes are actually, the verdict is reached. But
Well, but this is hard. This is
I'm not
hard
a
because we don't actually have anybody seeing him.
well,
You
we
don't
have
have,
cameras.
but you don't
There's
have evidence of him actually pulling the trigger, do you? Is that diligent? Do they have evidence of that?
I don't think you have evidence of a lot of people who are convicted of murder actually pulling the trigger, and I don't think that that's the level of evidence you need to convict someone.
Well, it's true, but that's true if you don't have a bunch of holes in your story. So we're talking about long range. We're talking about one shot. We're talking about the possibility of someone else doing this and someone else having more
Well, to prove
motive
that
than.
you to
Hold on,
assess
hold on, hold on. I'm
okay.
almost done. So someone else and someone else having more motive. So you can't really have a bunch of holes in your story, right? I mean, it needs to be a steady sort of, you put it all together.
Those
There's
aren't
no
really
history, there's no other crime of this kid. Let's put it this way. If I were the prosecutor, that's what I would want. I would want sort of like a video of the guy like actually pulling the trigger. There was no
well, that
cop
I
like
don't
with
think
Crooks that
you get that.
poked his head over the edge of the
I
roof
don't
and
think you
said,
get
"Oh,
that
look,
with
that guy."
most
You're
murderers.
just not going to get that. You're just not going to get that,
Yeah, you're
right?
No,
not
So
gonna
it's like
have
it
this
just
then
doesn't
he may
work
be
that way.
innocent.
no, I don't think that so what you are calling holes are not holes. You are creating possibilities of how else it could have unfolded without evidence.
That's how the
Unless you
defense works.
That's not how defense works. Unless if you
Sure it
want to
is.
posit an alternative theory of the crime, then you need evidence for the alternative theory. You need another bullet.
Then tell me what what evidence Johnny Cochran had. He posited an alternative theory.
And he had evidence.
What was the evidence?
His alternative theory
Mm-hmm.
was that that O.J. Simpson was framed because they
Uh-huh.
could not definitively prove that they didn't just go and take the blood that they had from prior incidents where the police had
Was
reported.
OJ framed?
Hmm?
Was OJ framed?
I don't think so, but
No.
the jury found that convincing. But I mean,
No, hold on. That's not necessarily the jury found that convincing, but it posed a reasonable doubt. Don't you see that's how this
convincing in
works?
terms of it as being a possibility to create doubt, sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so look, if people
That still required evidence.
yeah,
That was not
well,
just
look,
that
for
was just
evidence is
not a
whatever the defense puts up, right? Whatever the defense puts up, it's a matter of whether it persuades the jury. That's all evidence is, right? Testimony can be evidence,
the
right?
evidence in that was that yes, the police did have his blood prior to the
Mm-hmm.
crime in their
Right,
possession. Yes, they could not determine that the blood was fresh versus having the preservative in it.
right.
There were things that they presented that were factual, and unless you're going to present like, oh, there's another person on camera footage that seems to have a gun or something like that, you can't
No.
just say it was someone else entirely.
Absolutely. Look, you can do the exact. First of all, there was much more evidence, you
No
will
evidence
admit,
for
in
that.
convicting OJ than there is in convicting Tyler Robinson, right? OJ pretty much
I don't
wrote
know
his
about
name in
that.
blood everywhere he went, right? His own blood and the victim's blood was in his car, like all that stuff. Come on.
It's not that surprising that his blood would be in his own car, and the amount of blood was actually not very much. It was
Okay,
like
well, obviously, look,
I
look,
mean,
there was more evidence for
I've been
OJ
to
than this
Bones
guy. Sorry,
watching all
dude. It's
this stuff.
just
Like, I
this is
saw the photos
obviosity.
of the blood in the car. That was part of it,
Fine.
is that it looked like it could have been planted because it was just like 2 small drips of blood. So the part of that was like, oh, so he murdered someone and there's all this blood on the
And they
scene.
found his blood and put it at the crime scene. Got it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
but
no
here's
one
the
believes that.
here's the question right here. Do you think that there's an ability for the justice system to get it wrong?
Of course.
Well, yeah, that's always
I know. So that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Of course, there's an ability for it to get it wrong. So
I
whenever
don't
we're arguing semantics, right? I'm not so sure that everybody's going to sit here and say that OJ didn't do it just
I'm not
because
saying that
he
OJ
was
didn't
let
do it
off on the
either.
charges of murder.
I'm saying that the arguments that were presented to create an alternative theory of the crime had evidence. They weren't just it could
And
have been.
so will they hear? My gosh, man!
They're
Like
just
all you have to
ignoring
do, don't listen.
counterfactuals.
It amazes me that you cannot see this parallel, especially when there was obviously way more evidence to convict OJ, right? I mean, the car chase, hello, But anyway, putting all that aside, look,
But there's a
if
lot of you said
if
that
the
there is a lot of evidence.
we have actually someone high up in our government, the counterterrorism guy that just stepped down, that said the FBI stopped us from investigating this. Now it doesn't matter whether it's
But
true or
that
not.
doesn't
That
mean that
hold
Tyler
on, hold on, hold
Robinson
on.
didn't
It
do it.
doesn't hold on. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not because we don't know. But the idea that a jury is sitting there just like the OJ jury, thinking there is some motive that the police, the investigative people, and then when you tie in the fact that they deleted a bunch of evidence and got rid of a bunch of evidence, all of that is grist for the mill for the defense. You can pretend it's not, but it obviously is. If you sat on a jury and you found out all those things, you'd be like, that's interesting. And you know what? There's something fishy here. And since I don't know, and since I have a reasonable doubt, what do people do when they have a reasonable doubt? Oh, yes, they vote to acquit. And you only need one of those. Come on. This is obvious.
I mean, sure, it's a possibility that someone could be convinced, but I think it's the possibility that there is foreign involvement doesn't mean that Tyler Robinson didn't do it. Like, I
Okay,
think
but now you're not
can I
thinking
finish a
like
sentence?
defense.
You cut me off like
Go
every
ahead. I'm sorry.
5 words because you're very convinced of your position, which is fine, but
I'm not convinced of my position.
the facts that we have are that Tyler Robinson was there, as far as we know. And I mean, if they can show that that evidence isn't real, fine. But as far as we know, they have video footage of him being there. They have video footage of him getting off the building. They have this text message stream. If that's fake, that's a big problem for the prosecution. But assuming that that's real, that he really did communicate about the crime, assuming that he did own or have availability of getting the correct type of weapon that was used to fire the bullet. And that's a lot of evidence that suggests he did it. I mean, and then he turned himself in. So that's a lot of evidence to suggest he did it. I think with foreign involvement, like I don't discount the possibility that there's foreign involvement in killing JFK, but I think if you look at the evidence, it's pretty hard to say that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't shoot a bullet towards JFK from the book depository. I don't think it's that hard, though, when you have a highly controversial, famous person and you want to have them killed, to just let some random crazy get away with it. Like there are death threats against people who are famous all the time. You don't really have to court someone or give them anything or even convince them or have them have the right reason, the same motive for why they'd want to
You
kill
just
them.
have to not prohibit it.
You just have to not prohibit it. So I think it's more likely if there's foreign involvement with the assassination of Charlie Kirk that they just let this guy get away with it. They may have already
But you
known.
also, well, hold on. But then you also want to guarantee the outcome, which means that if they were allowing it to occur, they would need reassurances that the mission was a success. And a layman or a novice or a crazy person isn't really guaranteed to be able to pull it off and finish the job. So I actually disagree. I think that there would be involvement at some level to make sure that the job got the mission was completed.
Can we agree that the defense never stipulated to foreign involvement, not one single time so far?
We haven't heard from we have not heard from the defense since that claim was made.
The defense does not have to prove anything, and they do not have to disprove anything. All they have to do is create reasonable doubt. That may include disproving specific parts of evidence.
I know that's
There's
point.
no onus on them to say this is how it happened.
No, I get it, right? But they've never stipulated at a single point that there might be foreign involvements. Like I'm just saying that out there, right? Because that's true.
Well, let me ask you a question. Can the defense inject evidence without any proof or any kind of evidence like foreign involvement? Can they inject that into the trial without any proof that there's anything about substantiating?
They would have to probably subpoena
Yes.
Joe Kent. Yeah, they would have to subpoena Joe Kent, and then Joe Kent could come testify and say, look, I can't, and I don't know what the law is on this. We'd have to do some we'd have to look because he said it was classified information. And so then it becomes a matter of what he can say in a court case and what not. Does it become, if I had to guess, is that much like they've been censoring certain witnesses' identities and stuff during a closed session of the hearing, that it would move into a classified session of that courtroom, and then Joe Kent would have to disclose what he saw, right?
And
Hold on. So, but they absolutely could, and Joe Kent already said that they could, and he would, if they did, testify about it. So,
Well, let's say they did that. And then let's say they also call in people like Candace Owens who have text messages saying, I think Israel's going to assassinate me. And let's say they bring in as many people as possible that have something corroborative to say in that direction. Doesn't that lend itself at least to more reasonable doubt? I mean, I wouldn't think so if you still had a preponderance of evidence for Tyler Robinson. But if you can't see, if you don't have any evidence of him actually shooting, if you can't match the bullet successfully with the gun, if you can't explain how the bullet stopped when it would go through a moose, as our friend says, stopped in Charlie Kirk, if you can't explain any of this and people have it in their heads, oh, you know what? And they've got Joe Kent sitting there, and then people like Candace or whoever that had all this evidence of maybe foreign involvement or just CIA involvement or something, wouldn't that make the jury, wouldn't that compel them a little more towards acquitting?
Right, and then you add in like all the circumstantial evidence surrounding Charlie Kirk, you know, the people making the motions behind him. Why'd you remove the tapes out of the video cameras? The weird motions of people videoing behind the screen that Diligent pointed out. I mean, I would hire you as my defense, David, because that's the line they need to go down, because they need to have reasonable doubt. I mean, that's what the defense needs to do. So, I mean, I don't know if
But
they're going to be able to do it.
we also have to, hey guys, we also have to take in fact, like talk about the circumstantial evidence, the screwdriver as well, right? So no one was talking about the screwdriver discovery that was found on the rooftop, and that's the same. That was obviously where law enforcement believes Tyler Robinson was laying to obviously take the shot. So I think you also have that as well. I mean, there's obviously going to be the jury process that comes before us, and these people are not going to be ballistic experts, right? They're going to be regular citizens of Utah, and I agree. Someone said earlier, OJ, just because you're getting in a car and you're pursuing police, that doesn't make you guilty. Okay, this is a 22-year-old. Obviously, the defense is going to they're going to put on their whole clown show, their whole A game, and say, this is a 22-year-old. He did make some admission statements. Obviously, the letter found under the keyboard, where he left a letter for his lover saying that he committed the crime, and said that, I just had to take Charlie Kirk out because he's been hateful. That's to quote something that he made. So I don't
You
think
mean the
that the
prosecutor clown?
prosecution.
You meant the
Well,
prosecutor's case, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. So I don't think that they could prove, like, as of right now, with this new detail. And again, you have heard experts all today saying that, what bone or the tissue or the fragment breaking up, or that's not going to, these people are not experts on the jury, right? They're not homicide detectives, they're not ballistic experts. So when you put that in front of them, and the defense puts that in their closing argument, puts that in their opening argument, and continues to repeat it, I think you might have one or two people who vote to acquit, and that's all that matters. And just because Tyler Robinson made those statements, even when he was taken in, and obviously he turned himself in, there was, I believe they have video of him ditching the gun in the wooden area, right? So, I don't think that evidence alone, is going to, make him behind bars. So, we'll see. I don't think Candace Owens is going to be she's not. Like, I think
Wait, what do
there's
you
just like,
wait?
she's an analyst, right? She doesn't actually have inside information, right? She's just basically one of
No,
us
that's
with
not
just a
true. That's
larger.
not true. That's absolutely not
Mm,
true. Yeah, she shared the screenshots of Charlie Kirk. Um, she had it. She didn't release it. One, she had a screen recording from the AV guy who worked there, who removed the camera. That's evidence. So she did have evidence. She shared that publicly after a while, and then she also had, but didn't release, what was confirmed, Andrew Colvett, the screenshots of a potential motive by Israel just a few days before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, when he declared he was leaving the pro-Israel cause. Right. So to say that she hasn't had evidence is not true. Well, I can
That's
think of
not true.
three. I can think of
Exactly.
three. I can think of three examples of her having key evidence to the case.
Yeah,
Off the top of my
she's
head.
absolutely so you guys gotta understand, right? She's Candace is absolutely involved in everything that goes down. So you can't look at it from the idea that she doesn't have something. And lots of people always go and say, "Oh, it's just Candace doing it.
I'm not.
She's going crazy," right? But the reality is, it's like she's usually doing things where she can verify, but lots of times it has nothing to do with the topic. But we can't
But
just go on a crusade and say everything that she's saying is not good.
so you have here's the thing, though, right? The family did not hire the family of Tyler Robinson, and I know you have had communication diligent with the grandmother, right? But the family did not hire Candace Owens to be an independent investigator. So there's going to be things, right, that matters, right? If the family hired her to be an independent investigator, maybe I just don't think just because she knows something or just because someone reached out to her
Journalists are going to do
on
what they
foreign.
do. We investigate. We don't need to be
But
paid by the family to investigate.
I think you do. I
No, you
think if
don't.
you're trying to make to acquit Mr. Tyler Robinson, I do think Candace
No one's
Owens
trying
would
to
have to be an
acquit
independent
Tyler
journalist.
Robinson. Listen,
No, listen. I won't even go that far.
hold on.
Did you
The
really just say
premise
that?
is if you talk over me one more time, I'm dropping you down. The premise is that you're trying to investigate to get to the truth, right? I'm not trying to prove he's innocent. I'm not trying to prove he's guilty. The prosecutor is trying to prove that he's guilty. The defense is trying to prove that he's innocent. Investigators, journalists are supposed to be trying to prove the truth, find the facts, right? Independent of what they may be. Is that a mute glitch? Go, somebody.
I don't think Jared was talking about you. I think he was using the proverbial you, as in the
No,
Yeah,
I'm
defense.
saying,
so
but I know he
I'm
wasn't talking about
talking.
me, but I'm saying in general, like, it's ridiculous. I feel like we're wasting our time with that. Julian,
Jared
I
was
want to get, I
talking.
want to go to the hands. I want to go to the hands. Julian, go ahead, and then Imperator and Miss Lou.
Someone brought up a minute ago about presenting evidence or presenting ideas without evidence. Attorneys absolutely can and do this often. They will ask a question they know they're not allowed to ask or they're not allowed to get an answer to because the issue will have been addressed in some sort of pretrial. The opposing counsel will sustain it or will object
Because
to
the
it.
jury still hears it.
Correct. And that's the whole point of doing it, is that now the people are sitting there going, wait, why can't I have an answer to that question? And that's all you really need to do, is present that doubt. That's the whole responsibility of the defense in this case.
I agree, but then the judge is going to usher the jury out for a few minutes and say that you can't bring up the foreign involvement. So yeah, I'm not. He's going to. Yeah, the defense is going to get their 1 or 2 strikes on that. I agree. They're going to try to bring up the foreign involvement,
Well, both
but
sides will do it, not just the defense. Both sides.
well, there's no reason. Well, the prosecution is going to bring it up. I actually don't think they are. I don't think the state of
I mean,
Utah is going to bring it up.
devoid of the foreign thing. I just mean it's a general practice of
But
attorneys to win a case.
no, I agree, but I think that they're not, because they see it more as conspiracy. I'm not saying that I do. I'm just saying that's what the state of the Utah believes. I don't think it would be net positive beneficial for their case to bring it up unless the prosecution did. And you're right, the prosecution, they're going to try to, put it in, and then, the prosecution is going to object, and the judge is going to give 1 or 2 warnings and maybe usher the jury out for a few minutes and say, you cannot bring that up. Also, they can also say, because a lot of times the police officers, right, lay the groundwork of what evidence could come up, right? If no police officer, ATF agent, FBI said that they have any information about a foreign involvement, I don't think that could be brought in the trial just based on Candace Owens or said person on a podcast platform. I'm sorry, she's not an independent investigator of the family. I do think it's
Okay, I'm
different.
not gonna
If
have you're on repeat. Let's go to Imperator and Miss Lou.
So I did want to bring up the Martin Luther King assassination was actually pretty similar to the Charlie Kirk assassination. Same kind of bullet shot from a downward angle from a similar distance. And in that case, the bullet hit him in the jaw and traveled down his neck, I believe, and was left in his body.
No, and the bullet entered the torso and then shot up into his jaw and then ricocheted around in his mouth.
I don't think that's. I'd
Yeah, the bullet went in,
No,
exited
I
his
don't think that's
body.
true. I don't think that's true, Joe.
I might have the order wrong, but I know for a fact that the bullet went in his body, okay, exited his body, re-entered his body, and landed in his mouth, and then bounced around his jaw.
Well,
and his teeth and his mandible were what caused that bullet to stop, and it ricocheted all
it
over.
did like go through and then re-enter. But I guess the point is that I don't.
Wait, hold on, wait. That he's exactly right. It entered, left, entered, and stuck. That's correct.
We've established that. Go ahead, Imperator.
So, but the point being that without knowing I have not seen, I don't know if other people have seen, I don't know if it's been released, the full like ballistic report or autopsy or whatever is going to contain it, or expert opinion. It's hard to know the exact path that was established of the bullet. But and also, like in the JFK assassination, there's the magic bullet. But what I'm getting at is bullets can act strange when they hit fluid, and the human flesh is basically fluid, right? So it can it's hard for me to believe that his spine stopped the bullet in its tracks, just like it hit a brick wall or something. But if it's more like the bullet traveled down his spine after hitting soft tissue, that would strike me as more believable. Um, and if that's the case, that would be a very different story.
It was a miracle bullet, according to Andrew Colvett. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Miss Lou.
Thanks, Diligent. I just want to mention, because somebody brought up earlier that the jurors have no ballistic expertise. Well, that's obvious. If you go back to the O.J. Simpson trial, the billion-dollar attorneys that O.J. had, F. Lee Bailey and his team, were able to convince a jury that O.J. Simpson was innocent, despite the fact many of us who watched that trial for 2 weeks were gobsmacked by that result. The point is, the defense in that case presented the case better than the prosecution. Now, I think it's important to note that we don't know the defense team that Tyler Robinson has. Clearly, they probably not have, being the defense and not being a rich family, don't have the billion-dollar attorney set that OJ had. However, the state will probably have their crack prosecutors because the government has made it clear that they want this to happen. Okay, I'm talking about the federal government has made their notion clear through the use of their federal FBI facilities and other comments made by federal personnel like Pam Bondi that they want this to happen. So I think that is a dynamic that bears in mind when you're talking about a jury. At one point, it was discussed that they won't even let this go to trial, that they'll make him plea out in some way because they don't want to have a full discovery trial to the public. That is something else that might be considered along the way. Thank you, Diligent, for the mic, honey.
Well, if they're pushing the death sentence, then I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's going to go to the unless there's a because right now the prosecutors, they've been hell bent. They're pushing for the death sentence of Tyler Robinson. So you're not going to get a plea deal of, well, I'm going to get a death sentence and plead guilty. So you understand, Miss Lou, that would probably be taken off the table.
Well, they would have to maybe not go for the death sentence. That isn't locked in stone. They might work that as the plea. You get your life, but you're going to have to do this. I mean, that's done all the time. So we don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating here. All I can say is that based on case history with the O.J. Simpson trial, you saw in detail a public trial where a absolute crack defense team, and I mean at least 12 lawyers were on that team, I think, as I recall. So yeah, and Nicole Simpson's family obviously didn't have that, and it may have been the state. I'm not sure if they were the ones that were so much involved, and it was the state that I don't remember exactly the prosecution side, but yeah, think about that and how that dynamic works with attorneys on jurors.
I think the thing with the O.J. Simpson trial is that you have a very specific set of circumstances. One, the guy who investigated the murder had reported to the house in the past for domestic disputes, and he was like not like literally a Nazi. He had Nazi memorabilia at that he was collecting, so that came out at trial. So that was very discrediting to him as a detective, that he had, and that he was had writ also, I think, had, if I recall correctly, had helped this woman write like a screenplay, where he was providing banter about cops, and there was all this like very racist banter. So all of that really discredited the evidence that the prosecution brought before the jury. And then also there's the whole race aspect of it. The jury was mostly black at the time. It was like Rodney King had just happened. There was a lot of racial tension. So there's also the argument to be made that the jury wasn't going to convict him regardless of what the evidence was going to be, because they just wanted to let a black guy off the hook. So I mean, I think it's hard to say based on that a jury is so easily convinced of reasonable doubt, because you're not, unless we have I mean, I don't know what type of prosecutor would
It's
even
unpredictable.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's something that you can't really predict.
Yeah, I just think that particular case is so unique and not very comparable to this one, because you have to believe, there's a huge question of whether that jury was even being objective at all, and two, I don't think there's going to be anything like having a detective who had a history with the accused and was, had this hugely discrediting personal vendetta. So I don't think there's going to be anything like that in this trial.
I'm sorry, President, I wasn't trying to say that the details of the cases are parallels. I'm just trying to say that a really crack attorney team can do amazing things with evidence, even evidence that they don't really have, but they're convoluting in a way and how it's presented.
Well, I'm
Because a
saying
lot of a trial is a show.
Sure,
A
but I'm
lot of it,
saying that that's not necessarily evidence of that case is not necessarily evidence of a jury being convinced by
I think you're missing my point. I think you're missing her point. She's making the point that what the defense can do. I mean, if that same defense had this case, I think they would do great, and it would have nothing to do with race.
But that
right?
case
She's
was
talking.
intrinsically about race. So I mean, you can't
Yeah,
really
no.
compare it.
Okay.
You could make the
He's
case
not going to
that
get your
nothing
point.
that
I
you could
promise.
make the case that the jury acquitted O.J.
I
Simpson
tried.
simply because he was a black man. I mean, you can make that case. You can make a compelling argument that
It
that's
definitely. Well, I mean, you can. It's unprovable by nature, but you can definitely
I know.
say you can definitely say that it may have influenced their decision, but it's still purely speculative. I don't know why we're even.
Yeah, we
entertaining
can't
that.
prove this.
Have even admitted
We can't prove this.
part of their thinking.
Yes, the point here though is, and I still think you're missing the point, is that a very good defense team can find holes in what the prosecution, because the burden of proof, he who posits an irrational world must defend. You have to make the case entirely. You have to elucidate it from the beginning to the end. There can't be holes. And then when you have this other thing where you can say, and listen, I'm sorry, but it's universally in America that people think that our government is just incredibly deceitful and absolutely mendacious. So I agree with her. I think a crack defense team, you don't have the guy shooting. You do have to go on circumstantial evidence. Is that enough? And when if the defense can call Joe Kent, for instance, and put in the mind of people, well, gosh, the government there might have been intelligence, there might have been a foreign nation, and why did the government shut this down? It doesn't really matter whether it's true or not, just as it didn't matter whether it was true or not in the OJ case. It just matters whether it generates a reasonable doubt. And I am reasonably doubtful that it won't.
That it won't.
I think you also have where Robinson also discarded his clothes, right? So he changed his clothes. I mean, the prosecution is going to mention that. Now, obviously, you're right. The defense does not have to, give reason to why he changed his outfit, to why he took off his scarf, or to why he, changed his clothes. But again, the jury is going to have that in the back of their head, and most of us, so we're playing this out ourselves, right? This is kind of like a mock jury right here. But most of us agree that Tyler Robinson was involved some way, right? I don't think anyone is gonna,
I mean,
go out.
I don't know that with certainty, but I think it's likely.
I mean, I guess, do we accept that he was there that day?
I don't know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I have not seen any evidence of that.
Well,
I've not
let's
seen
say
any
that
evidence of
they
that.
place him at the scene of the crime, and there is no, the defense does not dispute that fact. What do you say then? Let's take that as a given.
Well, I mean, if it's a given, I mean, I still don't know what you're getting at. Are you saying, do I think that he's not guilty of the crime if they place him there? Like, what's the question?
I think, how does the jury respond? What's the explanation for why he's there if he wasn't involved?
Well, the question isn't was he involved. The question is did he pull the trigger and kill Charlie Kirk?
But why
Right?
was he there? I mean, this is part of the.
But the prosecution has to hold their whole narrative. Don't you
They
understand?
have to prove that he pulled the trigger and killed Charlie Kirk. That's the charge.
Yeah, he doesn't have to prove why he was there. He could have been there
He
because
could have been there watching, sitting back, drinking a soda pop. You don't know why he was there. They have to prove that he pulled the trigger.
I think if you're trying to create reasonable doubt, that would be the first question. It's like, okay, if he didn't do it, why was he there?
No, they cannot. No, they're gonna. That's
the main defense. That's the main defense that you guys are arguing against. It's he's going to say, no, I wasn't there.
I mean, depending on the prosecutor, right? We don't know. Some prosecutors like to stretch out
We
their
don't
legal
know
stuff.
that. Well, you're assuming that he's going to say he's not there. We don't know that.
Well,
and just because he's there doesn't mean that he killed Charlie Kirk.
I know, but so then you're giving. So if you don't,
it is a supporting piece of evidence. If he was during that time, it's all about okay. If it's
so you have to concede to our ground.
You have to give an alibi that's provable or believable by the jury. If you want to convince people that you weren't there, you have to prove that you were at a different location at a different time.
Period. That's fair, right? That's fair, right?
The prosecution can prove that he was there or no?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I thought this was already
proven. If the prosecution can prove that he's there, they still have to prove that he killed Charlie Kirk. Him being there is only a supportive piece of evidence. It's not conclusive that he's the murderer. It's a supported piece of evidence.
The OJ example holds here because they had his blood at the crime scene. But
the
prosecution,
really.
Hold on.
You're blood in your own car at your own house.
Stop interrupting him.
At the crime scene as well, though. But listen, the prosecution lays out their case and they have to prove the whole thing. Like, let's just imagine in some fictional world that part of their case was that a guy was jumping over a fence and dropped one of his gloves. And they said that's one of his gloves. And then in trial, again, total fantasy here, they asked the guy on trial to try on the glove and it didn't fit. And then all of a sudden you find that they acquit. Don't you understand? So when you're trying to atomize one thing, but the prosecution has to lay out their case and they can't have holes in that case. They have to prove their whole case because the defense is going to go after the whole case, not just one piece of it.
You can have holes in the case. It's beyond a reasonable doubt, not any.
I literally just told you how OJ got off, by the way. The glove didn't fit.
There was a number of things. It's not just that. That's like when that line.
That was the big one.
That Johnny Cochran used, he used the not fitting for all kinds of evidence. He repeated it. I've watched his closing statement before.
Okay, so but I
actually thought there was
which was brilliant, though. Which was absolutely brilliant and probably got him off.
I thought it was confirmed already. I'm sorry. It's been a few months, but I thought it was already confirmed, you guys, that there was video on the rooftop of the Loose Center where Robinson was jumping off the building, fleeing into the woods. I thought there was already video of that.
You can't positively ID him.
I think you can. He looked darker. You could ask the jury. I think you could say
no, you can't. You can't on it. You can't.
That's fucking retarded. What we don't know is what we don't know is if there is surveillance video that does ID him better than what we've seen there. Right?
I mean, I'm sure if he had a cell phone, they're going to be able to use that to establish.
You're just speculating.
Okay, but let's
go to Blake and Coyote real quick. I haven't got to go.
Speculation, frankly.
Yeah. So thanks, Diligent. Here's the problem: is the pretense or the base in which this entire discussion's predicated on is flawed. How's it flawed? It's flawed because each one of us, as United States citizens, operate under a pretense that district attorneys, people of law enforcement, do the right thing. And what the problem is I'm telling you right now that the district attorney is 100% corrupt and that they are not playing by the rules. They are deliberately lying. So when you have that sort of operation underway, all of these arguments, all of these questions, like if it's not Tyler, then what was he doing there? I mean, all of that, it holds no water because it's basically pointless because they are corrupt to begin with. And these questions about, well, if it's not Tyler on the roof,
Well, I
then
mean,
what
it
was he
doesn't matter
doing
if the
there? Was he
prosecutor is
involved?
corrupt. It matters if the judge and the jury are corrupt, right?
Right.
He can.
Well, look at how far we've gotten so far without really we've had the judge with minimal involvement, and look where we are right here 6 months and some days later.
Has the defense issued an order to the judge saying that they think the prosecutor's corrupt? No, it's just been that I think their evidence is weak, right? So there hasn't been any motion to somehow forgo or kick the freaking prosecutor to the to the ground, right? There hasn't been any of that. So again,
Well,
like Diligent said, it's not up. It's not really the prosecution, right? If the judge, because the judge, it's not even really the jury, right? Because during this trial, the judge is going to be making the objection. The judge is going to be making what could be heard. Is going to be the point person on whether the jury has to be ushered out. Even when the jury comes back with notes or what have you. So it's really up to the judge. The judge,
but up
I'm
until
like,
this point, which documents are we being thrown at in our face with the Fed slop narrative? What documents are being thrown at us with everything that alleges Tyler did? Who wrote those? Was it the judge?
but Blake, this is
No, that's
not
not.
being played out in the court of public
It's not
opinion.
about Blake.
Jared, you're
No,
rugging. You're rugging,
you're playing.
Jared, you're rugging. You're rugging. Get your connection in order. Go ahead, Blake, and then we'll go to Coyote.
Yeah, my point is that the DA has been driving the bus all the way up until now and is going to continue until, yes, the judge, if it does get to the point where which this trial or this case gets adjudicated, yes, the judge will then be super involved. But up until now, it has been nothing but the district attorney driving the bus. And look, these questions of, well, if it's not Tyler, then what was he doing there? All of that stuff. Look, that all should have taken place in a normal criminal investigation instead of a complete rush to judgment. Because guess what? We would have uncovered more than likely this network of people involved there in Utah, these ancillary, more powerful people that are absolutely behind things. All of that could have come out instead of just going straight to this kid and then realizing that, oh shit, we actually have a really bad story here, and then it just gets stonewalled. So up until now, the DA has been driving the bus, and there ain't no way you can convince me otherwise. Thanks, Dill.
Thank you. Go ahead, Coyote.
What's up, man? Yeah, I was just kind of. Well, I still don't know how people can like skip over the getting the gun up top and all that big old gun.
I
And then
definitely didn't. I like didn't I reenact it?
now you've stuck with it. I still don't understand how people see that. It just doesn't make any sense. Plus the whole story, like it's the old gun or whatever. But let's say that he did sneak that big old gun up in his baggy pants or whatever. In the
His skinny
picture that,
jeans.
yeah, the jeans or whatever that I saw the video. I didn't see any kind of thing poking out, but he knew how to do it extra better than anybody in the world. He was like Houdini up there.
Why wasn't
My
it strapped to his back?
I don't know, bro. It's like, I mean, that's the thing. Did he bend up? I
That's the
mean, it's
perfect spot
amazing.
for it.
It's amazing. But that's the thing. He's innocent until proven guilty. I don't understand. And I put it in the pill because I looked it up because I've been coming to diligent spaces on this for a long time. And everybody that comes up to argue this point, they come at it for very aggressive with like, he's guilty and needs to prove, like this isn't a country where you have to prove your innocence. You prove that he's guilty. And it's like, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not a big I mean, I'm in this or whatever, and I observe, but I'm not like in it. Like it's gonna, determine my faith and stuff like that. But I do want to know it from the people that have an opposing view of it. Of I guess you could say the bringing the gun up there, 30-06. I've been shooting deer all my life. I know how the bullet comes in and out. Never done that before, but it was amazing. I forgot it was a miracle because this was a miracle bullet, and people love miracles over there. But I'd like to hear that if somebody could explain to me why are so aggressive on the people, like on the pushback, and why is he not innocent until proven guilty?
Coyote,
I'm
can I
not.
quickly ask you, mate? Can I quickly ask you on that? So the reassembling of the weapon allegedly on the rooftop has caused a few people to more heavily scrutinize what perhaps took place there that day. So given that is the case, and he was able to reassemble the weapon on the rooftop, and then fired a perfect shot without test firing to zero in his scope. Does anyone get that first shot right every single time if he is not a professional shooter? And is that one of the things that you are very skeptical about? And I'm open for that question for anyone else to respond to as well. Could he have reassembled and fired the perfect shot from distance without zeroing in his scope first? Because
That's
they go ahead.
Well, that's a very, very, it's coming from a prosecutor's kind of aspect. I guess you could. I've never really thought it that way. I'm not a prosecutor, and I'm not looking to make sure the guy's guilty. But I mean, I'm sure that he could professionally. He doesn't have army experience, so I mean, I don't know. Maybe he Googled it or something that like all these different little techniques. But I don't know if that got seen from the internet. Then the internet would see that he has been looking into how to bring and assemble a gun. Because I mean, I can't assemble. I've hunted my whole life, right? Got the guns right here, but I couldn't tell you how to just assemble a gun right now. I'd have to YouTube it, right? Or would there be a paper trail on that? That'd be my argument. Wouldn't he have a paper trail behind if he looked up how to disassemble it, or did he just sit there like Tom Berenger and Sniper his whole life and and just figure it out? I don't understand.
But the likelihood of having such accuracy if he was not zeroed in on the target with a test prior
So,
to pulling the trigger being the terminating shot.
so he went up there, a gun, and then shot so precise, like so badass, like Olympic style shooting, and shot him to where it didn't even penetrate the other. Like, no, I just don't get it. I really don't. It's a whole mind fuck, and this is exactly how they designed it to be, because it's all the drones spinning around and stuff. But my thing is this: I just don't steal. He could have it to his back. Somebody would have seen a guy with something poking out, for the love of God. It's kind of like that at the Trump shooting in Butler. People saw beforehand and they pointed at it. I mean, I guess the government didn't do it, but they pointed at the guy. And it's like it's crazy as shit to me that people couldn't see. That's a big weapon. And it just doesn't make sense, any of this, man. And then they arrested that guy after for classic porn on the phone, or kitty porn on the phone. What's his name? Diligent, you talked to that dude. What's that guy's name? The old
George
guy.
Zinn.
Yeah, it's just too much shit here, man. It reeks of our government. Would they do anything corrupt like this? Oh yeah.
But whenever, in all the other political assassinations, whenever do they just fire one shot? I mean, okay, it was a lucky shot. But even like, I mean, obviously, military trained Lee Harvey Oswald, but he shot a bunch of shots. Like that's the way you would do, right? You would, if you went up there, you wouldn't just pull one shot like you knew you were the greatest shooter ever and then not pull any more. Even if you were that lucky, the guy would still pull off same thing with the guy in Butler, like pulled off. He actually took out someone in the audience. You would pull off a number of shots, right? You wouldn't just pull off one shot and go, "Well, I'm the best, so I'm sure it hit." No, I don't think so.
And then
Well,
go
I
eat
don't know.
after. And then
I
go
don't
eat
know. I've
after.
never killed. I've never killed people. Usually, I would think that you would do just one, but I've never killed people, so I don't
Well,
know
when
if
has that ever
that's a
happened though?
normal thing to do or not.
But when has that ever happened? Lee Harvey Oswald didn't do it. The Butler guy didn't do it. When has that ever happened where the guy, especially at long range, just pulls off one shot? He doesn't. Have you ever shot anything like you can once you start shooting, you can go bam, 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 right? But that's the whole point, by the way. Like
I
why
grew
would
up
they?
on a 50 and I grew up on a 550 acre farm. It's like
Uh-huh.
just don't talk to me about shooting. I don't care about that.
I am
Just stick
talking to
to
you
the
about
facts,
shooting.
right?
I am
I
sticking
mean,
to
he
the
can talk
facts.
about
That's
whatever.
what.
He can talk about shooting if he wants to. We're talking about a shooting
Yeah,
machine.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just
So
saying,
could
look, and we could have a different idea. Well, I'll throw it back to Coyote, but I just don't know another instance where a guy from long range pulls off one shot and doesn't, because he came there all business. He doesn't pull off a couple of more to make sure the job is done. It's just, not even the mafia does that.
Yeah,
and then
David,
goes and eats
particularly.
after. And that's the thing. It's like he did this awesome, crazy miracle shot with the after he assembled the gun, and then just cold blooded ate at like what I need a number 5, please. Supersize that and make it a Pepsi.
And let me go
Hey, if
have my
I
Scooby Doo
hey if
moment and tweet it all to another guy.
hey if I hit my target, usually if I hit my target, it's like less than 5% of the time do I need to put another target in them.
Yeah,
All right,
but
you
that's
guys, I'm going to give it about 10, 15 more minutes. Make sure you're following my co-host, Australian Talks. He hosts Spaces, Hit Slap, Coyote up here, Miss Lou, Jared, Julian, Logic, Imperator, Blake, everybody up here. Make sure you give them a follow. If you want to support what I'm doing, the best way is to go to my X profile, turn the bell icon, all notifications. If you're on YouTube, hit that notification and share the channel with your friends. If you want to support what I'm doing, the best way is by subscribing. There's a pink button on my X profile, and I do subscriber only after Spaces to give value to my subscribers. There's one scheduled. It's up in the Jumbotron. Go ahead, you guys.
Miracle shot, and then he ate, bro. He ate. Nobody ever talks about the eating after. Like, bro, that's not what cold blooded killers
Yeah,
do,
he goes to
man.
Dairy Queen right afterwards, just really chill. Goes and gets Blizzy.
It's crazy, bro.
following on from what David said as well. If we are to assume, and we've been led to believe that this was entirely premeditated, and he was going there with the explicit intent on rendering Charlie Kirk lifeless, what stands to reason that he knew he would be apprehended for it as well? He'd already made that consideration. And therefore, yes, David, I do believe he would continue firing until he rendered the victim dead. And there is no way that he would have been able to look down the scope, see, yeah, okay, I've hit the neck and now I'm going to get up, pack up my gun and run away and hopefully escape. I think he wanted to finish the job, at least according to the official narrative. So that being the case, why would he only fire one, be unsure if it is just a wound or if it has rendered him perished? Because he wanted to get the job done for the notoriety, allegedly. So yeah, I think he would have sat there and fired off a few more, and perhaps even engaged the crowd afterwards as well.
You know when I knew it was over, this was foul, was whenever Trump tweeted that tweet out. Everybody was bitching about the Star of David on it. I wasn't. I was looking at the bottom where it said R.I.P. Shlomo Perel, and then I looked it up. It means like imbeciles, like slang over there. And I just couldn't help but like nobody ever talks about that enough. Why did he tweet out something that said R.I.P. Shlomo Perel? And that's a very very confusing tweet.
Hey,
And
you tell us why. You tell us why he did that.
because the government did it. Or the government or Israel, I don't know. Probably all of them. Five Eyes, 22. This Israel Mossad. I don't know exactly who did it, but I'm pretty sure that they had a part in it because he was this. I've looked up on Charlie Kirk. What I do know that he was doing as he was going back on his. He wasn't he was groomed basically from a young age, great speaker, whatever. But I do find that he was kind of you could get a little stuff over his head. You couldn't beat him in a debate. But the thing was, he was starting to see some of these, these things that we talk about, and the government did not like that because he had a lot of power and he believed in something. He did believe in. He had free speech and
He
he
couldn't
actually
be
believed
controlled.
in it.
He's gish galloping like a motherfucker. I love it.
He
All
did. I'll
right.
say that about you. I hated Charlie Kirk, bro. I used to hate how he used his Genesis 12:3. But when I looked into it after and like the Ben Shapiro interview, like that's when I knew something was different, bro. That dude, his mind changed.
He started to be principled. He started to shift, and they couldn't control him. And I think that's why he's no longer with us. Let's go to Blake, and then if there's anybody on stage who hasn't gone yet, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, so just wanted to throw a little bone out there to all the people that I don't know, I call them maybe the Fed slop narrative people of the shot was taken from the roof crowd. Go ahead and start thinking of your new spin because this is going to come out at some point. It will, without a shadow of doubt. It's a matter of fact that the guy was not to the edge of the roof. Okay, he was about 6 feet back. So you're going to need to figure out how you can talk us into the bullet doing the downward 10 degree without line of sight at all. Okay, 10 feet back or 6 feet back from the edge of the roof. So he stayed hidden. And you're going to need to figure out how you're going to talk into the fact that the guy was in communication with someone down there by the tent, because when Hunter Kozak gets up to talk or gets ready to take the mic, this guy gets into position. So these are all things that just, and you know who you are, you're going to need to be thinking about how you're going to explain it away, because it's inexplainable. And we'll leave it at that for tonight. Thanks, man.
Is it one of the hundreds of anonymous listeners down there? Or are they in the room?
They follow me, bro. They follow me around. I mean, it's the wildest damn thing. Yeah. So anyways, everyone have a good night. Thanks, Dill.
Don't you think it's uncanny that the guy that was asking him the question when he got shot was practicing being surprised, or at least appeared to be practicing
That
to
is
be
so
shot?
freaking weird, bro.
Dude, he's involved. He's involved.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, yeah, he's involved, bro.
Rakesh Patel's his little spiel that he did on for the media, right? That's one of the weirdest ones ever. His rhetoric, bro, and in almost 36 hours, 33 to be exact. Like, bro, like quit trying to make it so social, secret society.
When is the judge going to rule that this could be like we can see it video camera?
You're rugging again, Jared. You're rugging. Thank you. All right, you guys. I just want to say thank you. If you're over on YouTube, hit that like that channel, like that video, turn all notifications on, the bell, and I will. If you guys are over here on X, make sure you're following the space. Turn notifications on for my account profile. If you're on YouTube and you want to be a part of these conversations, the only way is on X Spaces. Come over here, request the mic, and tell us what you have to say. I'll see you guys in a minute. I'll see you guys in a minute over at the subscriber after space. If you want to bitch at me and complain about how I host spaces, or you just hate the way that I look or the cut of my jib. I had somebody tell me yesterday I had a jawline implant. That was the first time I've ever heard that one because of my chiseled cheek. The best way is by subscribing. Give everybody an equal opportunity to come over there and talk shit. So pink button on my X profile. We'll see you guys again tomorrow. Have a good night, everybody. God bless you.